Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another beautiful day of Overwatch Contenders Australia Fall Series. We're pretty deep in the tournament so far. We've only got, after today, 2 more days of competition to try and figure out who our champions are going to be for one of the final tournaments of the year. And Kev's by my side once again. And mate, I mean, yesterday was a pretty fast affair. Fairly disappointing performances, I would say, across the board from some of the teams. But today, looking to try and pick it back up.
Yeah, I didn't expect it to go that quickly. Maybe the first game, you're like, oh, yeah, you know, Honeypot versus everyone else. It's like possibly a 3-0. You wouldn't be surprised if it ended up in a 3-0. But yeah, second game, MSC Ground Zero, I think we expected a little bit more. It picked up towards the end on New Junk City for like a couple of points. But as we discussed yesterday, it was just so late in the day in that series.
Definitely too little too late for Ground Zero, but luckily enough for them, they have a second chance today, and let's go have a look at the bracket and see what chances they have today going up against their competitor in order. We'll be having Quetzal and Muddog a little bit later on today as we are setting our sights on the lower bracket, and as we set our sights at the top part of the bracket, Honeypot and Miku Fanguard once again in an upper bracket final.
Yeah, and I think if you were to examine this bracket at the start of the tournament, that would be the most likely case because, well, Honeypot's still the favorites to win. Miku Fan Club came second. Saw them internationally, they look decent. You put them into a Jungle Queen meta, of course they're going to succeed, and succeed they have, and we'll have to find out in a future series how that ends up panning out.
Yep.
But no surprises, no big surprises, I'll say.
Yeah, nothing too out of the ordinary just yet, and maybe at the end of today we may see some extra special stuff. So, got to have a look at the schedule. We already touched on it so far. Ground Zero Gaming and Order are going to be the first cabs off the rank today. And then we're going to have Quetzal versus Muddog. So hopefully for us, this first series, I mean, both of these series on paper should probably give us a decent amount of maps. But I've been proven wrong in the past here, Kev. But this is definitely a good time for it to turn around for Ground Zero.
Well, they certainly have, I think, the more even matchups. Ground Zero Order feel like an even matchup. Quetzal Muddog, probably more even than if you sort of changed up the bracket a little bit. It does, however, mean that between Ground Zero and Order, who are looking like the better of the 4 teams that we're going to be looking at today, one of them misses out on top 4 guaranteed. And so that will be a very disappointing result.
Yeah, it's quite sad, but I think, you know, over some of the tournaments that we've had over the past, like, year and a half that we've had here in Overwatch Contenders Australia, we have had some scenarios where the top 6 is still pretty competitive, and unfortunately the way that the bracket did fall, that some teams do fall out of the top 4. And I mean, you got to win all your matches to try and get yourself all the way to the top, and if you don't do that, then you might fall down in the lower bracket a little bit too early, and that's what's happened so far for Order. But I mean, I think this is going to be a good test for them to see if they really do have the source to get in the top 4. I think if they're able to take Ground Zero, then you'd say, yeah, comfortably they're going to be sitting in that top 4. Obviously, they're going to get it, you know, nonetheless if they do win. But then that's when you can't really take anything away from if they do take Ground Zero down today.
And look, if you're Zupa and you're trying to get more yen, play to yen, then you need to get a higher placement. You need to get that top 4 and maybe even beyond. So a lot to play for in that. I think there's a lot to play for there, but because top 4 is kind of like the premier cutoff that we've always had in Contenders Australia. That really is where, you know, you cut the wheat from the chaff and all that. So that's the position that all teams kind of want to be in.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody's fighting for that top 4 spot because, as we said, prize money does start to go up quite significantly as you start to win all these series as well. We'll quickly touch on Quetzal versus Muddogs at the end of today as well. Obviously, we're going to be jumping into that after this series, but how do you feel like that one's going to pin it?
I think it's another closer matchup because, you know, they seem like of these 4 teams, of the top 6, Quetzal, Muddog, strength-wise, look like more of a 5 and 6, but one of them will make the top 4 given how the brackets panned out. I'm just glad that the games on paper should be reasonably close. So, yeah, it's interesting. I think Quetzal have their issues, and we talked about that yesterday, but Muddog, they're a team that has good capabilities. So It's hard to call, actually. My dog might even have an advantage.
All right, we'll have to wait and see as we get into that series because we've got one to get to first. Ground Zero versus Order is going to be what we are jumping into right now. And because we're into a different set of the lower bracket, means we get to start off on a different control map as well. It's going to be Busan this time around. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, this game has been brought to you by the Monopoly game at Macca's. I got a little bit ahead of myself there. You guys can scan and play today. That was started yesterday. You guys can jump into Macca's now and get yourself some of that Monopoly goodness. As we get into some Overwatch goodness right now. Ground Zero yesterday took them a while to get heated up. They took 2 maps of getting kind of spanked around a little bit by the Miku fan club, and they put up a little bit of a fight on Nuke Junk City, but as we said, it was a little bit too little too late.
And they've had a little bit of time to sort of figure themselves out as well. I would like to give benefit of the doubt and say that maybe Ground Zero didn't give their best showing yesterday.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think MFC is probably just that much better as well, so both can be true at the same time. Order have been... It's hard because they're another team like Quetzal. Their 2 games that they played are Honeypot and Stuck Bros, and they're such... polarized in terms of the skill differential. It's hard to know where Order are sometimes, but on paper, when we look at the eye test, they looked okay versus Honeypot because they took some points. They didn't get locked out of any of the maps. They got a point on every single map they played, despite it being an 0-3.
Yeah, so, I mean, it shows that they at least have some fight in the belly. So we'll see if that comes out now up against Ground Zero. So we're on board with Quats here. We're going to try and run out with the Reinhardt composition up against a little bit something of the stock standard that we've seen so far with the Junker Queen coming here for Ground Zero.
Yeah, so this will be an interesting matchup. Obviously, the Ryan can be played. I think it's maybe a little bit more difficult in this particular meta unless you're a Ryan specialist. It'll take a lot from the team to be able to make use of this as well, but it is one of Quats' specialties.
Oh, Quats was able to get the opening pick there onto Atlas. I believe that was just a big old hammer swing and wasn't able to get away from the big bad Reinhardt too early on here. So that means that with this 4 versus 5, they can take this position up on the higher ground. And as you said, Kuffer is in trouble. The hammer claims another, and Quats will pick up the second member of Ground Zero as they clean up the rest.
Yeah, I think this is, in terms of matching up against a Junker Queen, it's a decent composition. Order can get really deep in the faces of Ground Zero, and once you sort of get into this melee range combat, you trust the tankiness of the Ryan over what the Junker Queen can bring to the table. It actually might be prudent for Kuffer to think about a swap over towards the Orisa.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they'll have to do their best to try and make this work, but you get into the melee space versus the Ryan, I think that's exactly what Quats wants.
Yeah, Quats is more than happy to just sit back and start throwing some hands around. He's got the Baptiste trying to keep him happy and healthy. They're going to drop the artillery here as they go through this small little choke point. Collects on Atlas, big old Earth Shatter. Collects onto so many members of Ground Zero, and Quats will swing that hammer and claim more members than you can see. And unfortunately, that means goes into a pause.
Yeah, I saw Atlas actually delayed there a little bit. He didn't go into the teleporter in time. And so a couple of things there. Felix probably should have used his 3 artillery strikes, 2 on the teleporter entrance and 1 on the exit, or maybe 1 on the entrance, 2 on the exit, to really mess up the TP play coming through. But he still managed to get a kill anyway, but maybe he got lucky there because Atlas shouldn't have been that far behind.
Yeah.
Possibly did it lag out? I don't know, is that why we're paused? Could be. But Atlas, he delayed by a good second or 2 going to the teleporter, and so because he was late to the TP, he dies to the barrage that was placed directly on top of the TP. That's how we end up in a 5v4.
Yeah, and I mean, everybody else, as they walked outside of that teleporter, they got overshadowed anyway, so I feel like that fight probably would have gone the way of Order, no matter what way you do slice it, whether it was disconnect or what have you. But either way, we're at this point now where we're looking at this pause, but, you know, kind of circling back to what you were saying about the compositional kind of advantage that it seems like Order have right now. It just feels like this Reinhardt, albeit has gotten to the point now where he can look very strong, and it's quite hard for the Junker Queen to really get in his face and kind of abuse some of the other tanks that we've seen so far.
It also just means that Quats can hold up shield. You can have Platigin and Felix just pump damage through behind the safety of a shield, and then once you get into the actual melee, the tankiness of the Ryan that he provides, plus, you know, the straight up melee damage that Ryan does, is you have to respect it at that range. It's hard for Kuffer to land any sort of abilities. You're not going to be able to provide the same protection in an actual poke back, because there's 2 phases of this combat. There's a poke side where you're throwing sim right clicks, you're having the Bastion go into his turret mode, and then there's actual melee side. Now you could argue it's better for the Ryan comp on both ends.
Yeah, it really does feel like that. No matter what situation they're going to be put in, Order's going to be pretty happy with how it is going, and it's all going to be about whether or not Kuffer wants to make the change.
Shadow's always free. Nothing blocks Shadow in this matchup. except the symbol.
That's going to be very niche.
That comes very later.
So Dooms now is going to be the one that's going to throw down the artillery strike, wanting to see where everybody's going to start making these movements. Seems like it's really
I've no idea where that went.
I think it went
onto Felix.
Yeah, maybe. Not sure where it did go, but either way, this is the way it has panned out, and we will see Photon Barret being popped out. A big hammer once again goes into Quinn, who loses their life. It's Felix who gets the double kill. They're going to come back in for the Rampage on Cuffer. Connects onto Felix. Eventually they do get the kill there onto the pesky little bash in, but it's just everybody else that's losing their life here, Kev. It doesn't matter. They get one, and that's it.
I saw Don go down to 1 HP in that fight as well, and a lot of confidence and trust in the team to say, it doesn't matter, don't use the sound bet, we're going to save it, we're going to win this fight, so just chill. And then you see the Rampage coming through, hits Felix, fine, let him die. Once the lamp is destroyed and Felix, if he dies, he dies, it is what it is. So hold the sound barrier for the final fight. Cover's going to come back in Doom. It'll be a little bit quicker, and they need to enable the touch. I think for Atlas, this might be the first ult as well.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like they've really had much going the way here of Ground Zero. Another slow start for them so far in this series. And Cuffer, that is a lot of damage he has to deal with. And with the turret fall from Felix, it's going to be more than enough for them to take down that Doomfist. And with the beat being dropped as well, it is all too easy for Order right now here on Busan. The mecha base seems like it is just going all one way, and that is all towards Order. So they'll have to keep getting these touches in, but without any of the tankiness coming in from the Doomfist, it's too hard for them to stay on the point.
Yeah, I mean, just instantly destroyed by Felix in the turret mode, and 100-0 coming through from Order. They played that expertly. They had the ultimate advantage every single stage. Dawn holding sound barrier is always going to give them an advantage. And they had everything they needed earlier. They had the earlier symbol, they had the earlier artillery barrage, which, you know, that ultimate doesn't always do a lot, but when you can just randomly catch out Atlas, suddenly it does a lot.
Yep.
Actually gives you value. Talked about the fact that Shattered had so much value for Quats. And Mecha Base is just one of those maps where you can go into the hard brawl-type composition, bring out the Rhine, and it's relatively safe and unpunished. And you'd ask, like, well, should Quats just bring it out again for Sanctuary? I think Sanctuary is a much more open map. Really depends on the matchup. And with Doomed also going towards the Genji, things might get slightly more difficult. And the Genji is specifically, I think, it would have been good versus the Rhine, but also because they've gone Genji and Sojin, this doubles up as a possible composition that plays well into the mirror, which Quats has now gone towards.
Yeah. So we've seen these compositions a couple of times over the last couple of days here, so we're going to see what it's really going to look at. Felix goes into the backline at the back of a TP, completely gets punished by it. But again, it just seems like the front lines of Ground Zero are just being decimated by everything that Order want to try and do. Nice little knife again from Quats, who is losing out on the Rampage battle, but they've been able to get the first bit of percent on the board, which is good for Order.
Well, they've been able to get the kills, most importantly, and establish dominance in that way. Once again, looks like he wants to go really deep here, as, you know, everybody just runs up and they get covered down first.
It's kind of a crazy way of playing the game, though, right? Like, they're coming in with these TPs and just going directly into the turret form, catching Ground Zero off guard, and maybe this is what Order really want to try and play as their game plan, is just be aggressive, be chaotic, and force Ground Zero to try and make these adjustments on the fly.
Well, this comp that kind of suffers when, you know, you don't get value in the TP, so if you are Ground Zero, you have to play around the TPs coming in. But they're going to just swap comps anyway, and you know what, I think the matchup has still not improved that much for Ground Zero, because if you're the Jungle Queen comp into an Orisa, you want to be playing the TP anyway.
And you can see that TP play comes all the way to the side of the Shrine here. Haven't really been able to take all too much space, has Ground Zero. They've much more circumvented the sides of it. They're going to try and get themselves the first pick here so they can at least have a teamfight victory going their way. Cuffer is also low here on the Orisa. Where is the rest of Ground Zero? They are completely sporadic across every part of this Sanctuary. We'll see a Kitsune Rush being come down from the middle part of the map, so they want to try and play around that with the Orisa, but once again, they just haven't been able to get these picks just yet. Maybe Quinn's able to find something special here on the Sojourn, but everybody else is oh so low. They're starting to contest this point because they're losing so much of this percent. Finally, they get something done with a rail going into Felix. They're going to drop the beat as well here from Atlas. They wanted to try and play this tempo. They want to win this fight and get some semblance of control back into this map and into this series.
It's a curious ultimate from Atlas. I don't know if it was really required. They already had the 5v4. I don't think there was anything that threatening coming through from the side of Order, or at least you should wait for another ultimate so you can trade ultimates 1-for-1. So they get the point, and that's important. But they do lose an ultimate for it, which I think was avoidable. Cuffer surviving there was huge, though. You can see Cuffer going down to low HP, but you just got to buy time for Quinn, because Quinn will find those shots eventually. And cover just can't go down. Hard pocketing cover is required here. I actually think eventually Turtle maybe should look over towards the Ana.
Ooh, that was very, very close there. Maybe if that stick went through onto the teleport, it could have gotten themselves a decent amount of kills there on the Tracer, but Doomed isn't able to find the stick just yet. Rampage is going to go through, goes directly here onto the Orisa, so that's going to be one of the issues all they know. There's no beat to try and keep her alive. Oh, so low, goes in towards the Terror Surge, wants to take it, doesn't get it. And it's all about now the Photon barrier for Ground Zero to try and play around with. Atlas skirts around into the back, gets one out and gets out as well. So he's healthy with how that has played out, but Ground Zero once again lose control of the point.
We're not done just yet either. This is 99%. You have to play this one. Quetzal is the opening frag.
Oh, no.
Couple's trying to come back on a Doom, but it's 5 versus 4. Couple of artillery shots trying to make things a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a hard tell for them to climb over, but it looks like they're doing enough so far. Cuffer goes down, traded out by Quetzal as well. It's all onto the supports. Atlas as well as Turtle are the ones that were here. So finally, Ground Zero get control back at the point. The 99 goes away, but they need to hold on until reinforcements come in on Ground Zero.
We're still going to take some time for Quetzal to get in, and Cuffer's on the faster hero, so should be fine for Ground Zero for now. And that was a huge fight to come back from because Order pumped everything in. They dropped their ultimates. They committed heavily. They got the 99 for it, which is always big. So Ground Zero need to think about how they're going to snowball this one because they only have support ultimates. Pulse Bomb is nice, but it's not reliable.
They also want to try and make sure they can get Cuffer back onto a hero that can try and play a little bit more into this matchup. He's doing pretty decently so far. Pulse Bomb, again, goes a little wide thanks to the Immortality Field. Felix is oh so low, and speaking of the man of the hour on the Doomfist here, Cuffer gets one onto Felix, looks for the second one there on to play to Yen. Isn't able to convert onto the kill just yet. They lost Atlas. They don't have one of the supports now here, Kev. This is going to be hard for them to try and hold on to this, especially with Turtle going down as well. There's going to have to be some big heroics, and it doesn't look like it's going to be enough. Order should be able to clean this one up in the 99. Cuffer is just going to try his best on the Doomfist here and get somebody back into this fight. Immortality Field is going to be too hard for him to deal with, and the Rampage will just be the nice little blow on top for Order to claim out the first map here on Busan. It's relatively straightforward for them. At least Sanctuary was a little bit more of a contentious point for Ground Zero, but in the way that Mecha Base went, the way that the majority of this map has gone, Ground Zero, they need to get their wheels moving.
Ground Zero seem to have a problem playing the Jungle Queen mirror sometimes. They started to get better at it in their previous series yesterday versus Miku Fan Club, but generally speaking, it's, you know, I think they had the better composition on Sanctuary as far as the Jungle Queen mirror went, but they just struggle versus the TP aggression. That was also true when they went up against Miku Fan Club yesterday as well. Obviously, you look at Mecha Base, and we talked plenty about the Rhine versus Jungle Queen situation, and given that Cuffer has opted to go Doom, going Doom earlier is fine. I think going Doom versus the Rhine composition is absolutely fine. Maybe on Mecha Base it could be difficult, but when you look at Sanctuary, the Doom call is actually pretty good. I prefer that look versus the Orisa. You know, I've seen examples of Doom comps beating the Jungle Queen comps. It's actually especially strong when you're going up against the Bastion and the Sim. Like they're both pretty weak to the Doom, and getting displaced by the Doom, punching players out of Immortality Field as well. It definitely causes problems for the Jungle Queen team, but I think the changes came so late, and had they maybe started on the Doom comp, things would have been better. Also, the support line of Ground Zero today have been, you know, there's been mistakes there. It's been a little bit lacking in terms of gameplay.
Yeah, it just feels like they haven't quite clicked just yet for Ground Zero, and it's a little bit disappointing as well, considering from what we've seen from these guys in the past, and you know what we're hoping to see from them for the entirety of this tournament as well. But this is, you know, backs against the wall kind of stuff. Losing out on the first map is not, you know, kind of counting them out just yet, but it's never a good start, especially after the series that they had yesterday. This is probably going to be a moment where they're going to be pretty low on confidence, but they need to try and pull it together and get it done here in this series.
You need to see, if you are going to try and counter the Jungle Queen comp, you need to see Turtle go to Ana. Staying on Kiriko is not going to be good enough here. You need to be able to have those sleeps, and the Byronade's ready. It's how you counter the TP plays as well. It's how you shut the Bastion down once the turret mode is in. So it's incredibly important that the hero needs to be able to show itself in that matchup, otherwise things will just get way more difficult. And as we head over to the next map, which is Numbani, by the way, you know, I don't think either team really specializes in too many off-tank picks, so it's unlikely you see D.Va. It's unlikely you see a Sigma, which is what has mostly been played, especially on A point. I mean, I think Quaz has maybe shown a Sigma a couple times, and it's maybe not that hard. You could even just play the Ryan as well to do similar things where you, again, brute force your way from attacker side, up top left, take the high ground, put up your Bastion behind a shield, and just rain down damage from above. That's generally going to be the gameplay. Beyond that, I think Orisa is probably going to be fine. I think if you're defending, both teams might think about the Orisa. If you're attacking, you might start thinking about the Ryan.
Yeah, there's a few questions we're going to throw at both of these two teams as they do go into attack and defense. But so far, Order, I think, I've been pretty impressed with how they're playing. I think a lot of their players are playing extremely well today. I was pretty impressed with some of their other series as well, as you had already said. Another team, much like Quetzal, who have had Honeypot plus Stuck Bro, so it is very hard to try and figure out where they actually sit in the grand scheme of all these other teams. So being able to see them here today, they've really been able to put on a good show. I'd maybe play 2 Yen. Might be able to streak up that prize pool leaderboard and have a little bit of a special time in Japan.
So there's the Rhine.
Yeah.
That's the first part of the equation.
From Ground Zero as well.
On the defense, which is interesting. Note that I think the Rhine on the defense is a little bit stronger because you don't have the range capability of the Orisa to affect other parts of the map. If you are trying to lock down top right positioning, as we saw where a couple were standing, that's great. But if your team gets TP'd on the left side, you're kind of just sitting there doing nothing. So
yep.
The Orisa does slightly more. Maybe it still doesn't quite help as much as you want to, but at least there's a little bit more input. The ideal here would obviously be the D, but we're going to see the Junk Queen instead, and there is obviously going to be the Sim in there. So at this stage, Quats is, it's Quats on the defense. Quats has revealed himself on the high ground side, and I think if you're Quinn, you might just TP on the right, which is what they're doing.
Yeah, I thought that were other colors. I must be tripping. Either way, this is the way it has worked out here. So on the defense is going to be Quats and the Gang of Order. Wait and see what these TPs are going to look like. They TP towards the backside of the map, so they want to try and play around some of these other sight lines. They want to try and pull Quats off of that position, but now they've gone for a bit of a longer rotation. So whatever, Ground Zero are going to go all the way to the back and through the second part of the street. Another TP play up towards this right-hand side, left-hand side, whichever side you do want to look at it anyways. And they've got the TP themselves back over to the other side. They've been able to at least deal with Quinn, who went up onto that high ground. Atlas gets rid of Quats though, so there's no tank here on the defense. So this is the best part for Ground Zero to try and play around this, but they need to make sure they don't die the artillery strike. They've gotten away from it in order. Unfortunately, have lost any hold they had here on the defense.
Ground Zero got to go fast. They're losing time at the stage because Don and Quats are respawning. And they got TPs as well. The good news for this attack is, well, they managed to at least secure a little bit of high ground. The next step is to be able to put some people on point to start affecting the point itself, or get a good enough TP that you can actually start getting kills. They're not going to see anything here, unfortunately.
Yeah, that window unfortunately just was not there, and it's pretty easy for them to kind of walk away from that as well. Koffer got extremely low. Now the window in response coming in from Order. Doomed is very, very low. Gets the beat though. He's now able to stand around with the artillery strike, can drop that onto the point, but it's all about this big bad hammer that's hard for him to deal with, and everybody else is getting eviscerated by Order as they walk in, swing the hammers around. Quinn gets a nice little two-piece, but they will go down, and one tick is all we get out of Ground Zero.
Which is, I'm surprised they even got that one take, because the window was, I think that play was heavily misplayed. You should be where Quats is right here on the high ground with your window facing towards the defender's spawn and then forcing position. So the order of operation is maybe it's cover on the point first, forcing Ground Zero, Order rather, to walk forward. And then you're able to deploy a window that covers the entirety of the point and the retreating path as well.
And they're going to try and make another TP play towards the back part here of the point. Kuffer is oh so low. Artillery strike's going to come down here from Doomed. Just trying to push them off more of these higher ground positions. They at least deal with an immortality field. They're going to use the photon barrier. It's a little bit of an awkward one, and now they are just locked inside of this room. This is another ring-a-ring-a-rosy coming in from Ground Zero. A fight on this.
Shadow's free, by the way.
Other side part, but with a TP coming in front, this is going to be too many members in front of the Reinhardt. He goes in, hits them all, starts to lay in the damage, and it's the right click coming in from Felix that does the damage, and once again, Ground Zero are being completely outmaneuvered and completely smacked about by Order. They are leaving Kuffer here up in this high ground, and they are just farming him for ultimate, and such a late stagger as well. They've got about 30 seconds by the time he respawns.
And that's actually even a better play, because I was going to say the only thing that went wrong there for Quats is he didn't manage to hit Felix with the Shatter. So the kills didn't come as quickly, but that actually ends up working better for Order, because now they get to delay longer, they get to, you know, drain that timer down more. put more pressure on the ground zero. On screen, ground zero going to go towards their fast composition. One tick is definitely not going to be enough for this map, so this is looking really unfortunate.
So, this is where it all needs to start coming together for ground zero. Maybe Cuffer on the Doomfist is going to be enough for them. As we can already see, Quetzal is extremely low. They're going to drop the window here as well, up onto the high ground, trade back. He is a support for a tank though, so this is going to be a pretty good spot for ground zero to maybe try and get a movement on this point, but they lose Cuffer in the back lines off the back of Don. Nobody is touching the point just yet, and Felix is up on the high ground, completely having control of it. Can drop this artillery strike as well. Goes in towards the turret form, looking to try and get this final touch. They'll get it done here by Doomed. Oh so low though. Felix completely eviscerates Quinn as well, and with this overtime week constantly ticking down, it is so hard for them to even try and get this touch because they need to make sure they are touching it almost every single moment in the game. The beat gets dropped a little bit too little too late from Atlas once again, and ground zero, they're going to get, what, a tick? That's it.
63.2, so
okay,
just under 2. They managed to squeeze in a little bit more, which is workable, but it's another situation where we're just going to see, I mean, this feels like Eichenwalder from yesterday all over again, where you're just not going to see the rest of the map. They get full held. Now you better hope that their defense is solid. Seems like I think it'll probably be a risk for Cuffer. I think Quetzal can just play Ryan on the attack again, kind of as I explained before we went into map. The strategy is sound.
Yeah, walk in, swing around, be a big bad man. You
can just force your way up top left and hold ground and play TPs properly. Both teams are going to have to play TPs here for sure. There's no way you don't. It'd be really hard otherwise.
So it looks like Cuffer is going to be rolling out on the Doomfist for the defense.
They're just going to lose the poke battle. They have no ability to actually hold high ground, and once Auto just walk up there, they set Felix up, they drop some sim turrets around themselves and just start spamming damage. And what's Quinn going to do? He's going to hide away. The neutral is just so much stronger for Auto here. It's just so much weaker for ground zero. What can Cuffer actually do in this situation? He needs to sort of off-angle punch somebody onto the floor, but I don't even see that angle coming through at all.
Yeah, that would have to be like the most dirty angle to be able to hit somebody in a position like that. So maybe he's going to hide around the corner. We'll have to wait and see. Ground zero on the defense. They know exactly where the goalposts are. 63.2 is what they need to hold out on. Maybe we can see some special stuff coming in from Quinn here on the Ash. They're just going to go to the low ground. They're just going to charge out onto the point, it seems. And that was TP up onto the high ground. And now, unfortunately for Cuffer, he has punched himself in not really the best position, but Atlas gets completely eviscerated straight away. And that means with one support down, it is all too hard for them to try and get this done. And Cuffer just goes down. And I think that is what we're going to call the final nail in the coffin here for ground zero on Numbani. And A is just ticking up at such a rapid rate. That was instantaneous. Yep. And unfortunately for ground zero, it seems like they are once again having a case of the yips.
And I was like going through the grand strategy, what Order could do. Or you just go to point. You know, that was always an option. Just go straight to point.
Go to the point.
And then you see ground zero. It's like, well, how do we contest? You want to go melee in the point. You're up against melee Ryan plus Bash and turret form is just right there. And yeah, I mean, you're playing some sort of like long range Ash composition, has some diving power, but versus a team that is just so much stronger in the neutral and just like, if you're going to force a brute 5v5 here, and you go to straight to point where they only need 2 ticks, it would be worse if they only needed 1, but there's not a lot to cap there. I mean, you're straight away under pressure from ground zero.
Yeah, it was a pretty rough defense coming in from them. They kind of had to throw everything into the wind and hope that something worked out for them, and unfortunately didn't. It seems like so far in these 2 maps, Kev, nothing has worked out for ground zero, but we're going to give them a couple of minutes as well. We're going to give you guys at home a couple of minutes as well to see if you can get your heads in the game for game number 3, just after this. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here to Overwatch Contenders Australia, and I think this is a little bit of a case of deja vu for Ground Zero. They are not looking in good steads right now in this series to try and stay alive in the fall series, but they've still got plenty of maps to try and pull this one back. It's going to have to be a complete reverse sweep from them here, Kev, but I mean, we've seen it done in the past, so we'll have to wait and see whether or not Ground Zero can whip this one out of the bag.
They're getting at risk of being 0 point locked out at the moment because they haven't gotten a single point over the two maps, which is what actually happened versus MFC yesterday until 1 point on New Junk City, and this time we're in Suravasa as map number 3. Are they going to get another point? Are they going to be in the lead? Are they going to have any sort of showing at all? Because at least on Flashpoint, Ground Zero started to look like they were getting everything together. Yeah,
they're really starting to get the groove on in some of those Flashpoints as well, but it still did start out relatively slow on that map of New Junk City as well. So I don't know what is troubling Ground Zero right now, whether or not it's the meta, the compositions, what have you. But they're probably, I'd imagine, pretty disappointed with their performances so far. They definitely want to start putting their best foot forward. And this is the best place for them to do it, is in the Flashpoint. So if they're able to whip this one out, get us rolling, get us going on Suravasa, then I'm going to be excited to watch it. But they need to start now. I think they need to start nice and hot here on Suravasa. If they're able to open up on the first Flashpoint, that puts them in the best possible stead to at least make this one in their name.
I think if they perform better on the other maps, and I'll even extend that to yesterday's performance because it doesn't seem like much has changed really, you would have a little bit more confidence in them. But when the evidence points towards them just kind of failing across the board, it's just such a rough look. Like, what is happening here? Like, multiple maps in a row, you just see 0 points coming through. Not close enough gameplay at all.
Yeah, and it really does feel like that, from what we saw from Ground Zero in the past, what we've seen from these players in the past, this is definitely far below the expectations of them. And finishing 5th, 6th is not, the finish that they would like. They probably would have liked it. A top 2 at least, but
It'll be on record as probably one of the more disappointing finishes for Ground Zero.
Yeah. I think especially with the way that it has gone about as well can be something that they may not wish to remember. But either way, brand new map, brand new time for them to start.
Finally, I respect that they're coming out with the Doom early. Because they seem to always end up on this comp eventually. Just start on it. Because it's an operable comp that you can actually find success on.
Yeah. So far, there was a trade of stuns between both of the tanks. Almost Kaffa was completely eviscerated there, but they're able to get him away with a nice little Suzu. So the Flashpoint now has started to unlock. The stuns come in once again. Kaffa, this time around, not being able to be saved by Turtle means that he goes down early on. In order, once again, start out with the opening pick. They make it into a second, and with the tank and the support dead, it is all just going to be a cleanup crew for everybody else. Doom gets one and gets out, so that's at least something. But I don't think it's going to be enough.
Quetzal plays those situations so well. He is able to counterpin Kaffa every single time, and both tanks end up on the ground. But the difference is Kaffa is deep inside orders for the rest of the squad, and Felix just goes turret form and completely melts Kaffa ones on the floor.
He's starting to look towards Felix now, and that was a quick evisceration of Felix, who seems to have been a thorn in their side for now. Another punch goes through play 2, and gets beaten up by the Doomfist in Ground Zero. They have unlocked the keys to the city, it seems. Taking down that Bastion means they just have so much more freedom in these fights. Doom is also low here on the Genji. They want to force Quetzal away once again. That is John that's just going in for a suicide mission. Looking to try and assassinate somebody himself, but it wasn't going to be enough for them. Crimson goes up into the air here on the Baptiste, and finally Ground Zero. They win a team fight quite handily.
And a lot of that comes down to the fact that I think Kaffa needs to stop targeting quads. He needs to find the backline instead. It's the Symmetra and the Bastion that need to be the targets unlocked every single time. You can't get counterpinned by quads unless you're ideally trying to punch him and then he charges back into you. For Quetzal to be able to do that to save a teammate, he's going to have to angle that perfectly, and it's a lot harder for him to do. So, yeah, find the backline, enable Quinn and Doom. Cover is the distraction, but once you get the punch on one of those DPSs, Quinn and Doom can swing in for the extra kill.
Yep. And it also unlocks a lot of the vision when they turn themselves back around. Felix now goes into the turret form, does a lot of damage to get rid of Turtle. Unfortunately for that beat, it's just not going to be enough to save out on the Kiriko, but everybody else is the one that's the attention of Ground Zero. They've taken down Felix once again. A punch goes through. It's a Dragon Blade that gets unleashed from Doom. They want to try and find some more of these members, but he spent a lot of this time just looking for a health pack. A few more of these ultimates get expended for both of these two squads right now. Kaffa finally gets himself back up to full HP.
Got a touch.
Yeah, I was going to say they do need to touch. I wasn't quite sure who was really in control of the point at that moment. But it looks like now with the 99, it is hard for them to play around with this. Quetzal still does have a Shadow to play around with. He throws it, gets it out onto Cuffer, gets the pin into the wall, and gets the kill as well. They lose the Reinhardt in the back lines at least, but I'm not sure if it's going to be enough here for Ground Zero to hold on. It looks like it will be not, and the first flashpoint goes the way here of Order. They're going to start the roll towards the second point.
Well, Felix has had quite the day so far because he seems to always get an opening pick somewhere on some player on the back line, just shooting through the entire team of Ground Zero. And when you're Ground Zero and you're operating 4v5 for a lot of these fights, it is quite difficult indeed. So I think Doom died pretty early that last fight as well, which is not ideal.
Yeah, it really did feel like that fight kind of opened up super early on. I think Doom actually died to the artillery strike. I think it was
there was that.
Yeah. So
Which
either way,
shouldn't happen for a Genji. Like, there's no way you shouldn't die to that.
well, that's the way the cookie does crumble. Quats goes in and gets rid of Quinn, who I believe was going in for a pulse bomb. He did charge into an awkward spot here onto the wall. The meter strike comes in, doesn't really get much done, and it's play to Yen that is just eviscerating more and more members of Ground Zero, and they get spanked as they go into the first neutral.
I think Cover thought he had a couple plays locked in the corner, but one TP just kind of saves him with the rest of Order rolling up. And I think Play 2 Yen's had too much of a free game, you know, versus a dive composition where there is a Doom in there is a Tracer and a Genji. The Symmetra is barely ever targeted, which is so weird to me. And now Cover and the rest of the squad want to try and match up in a mirror. The downside here is that they're going to be way further down in terms of ultimate, so they're coming at a deficit, and they've already dropped percentage on the point itself as well.
It really does feel like they've kind of had control most of the time, and now they're going to drop a window on the point as well. Felix goes through that with the turret form, and Doom just goes down instantaneously. And as soon as you lose this 4v5, it just feels like it is almost a free time for Felix, and now they are just going back onto some mirrors, and this is what Ground Zero have forced themselves into, is just going into a pure mirror and just hoping that they can try and win out some of these battles, and unfortunately it's just not working out, so that is flashpoint number 2 going against them. Not only do they have to reverse sweep the entire series, they have to reverse sweep Suravasa.
It's the same, it's Groundhog Day. Ground Zero, Groundhog Day. It's the exact same as what we saw yesterday versus MFC. They're down as maximal as you can be down in an entire series. And get another fight where Felix just gets an opening pick. He's good for them. In every fight, it seems like Felix is getting something.
He really feels like he's been kind of the MVP for Order so far. Now he has another artillery strike at the ready. The positioning is starting to come in here for Order. They've just got themselves in better spots, better times all the time. It does kind of come down to the fact that they have been winning a lot of these fights. Doom just gets eviscerated. He was there and he was not. The Immortality field was a little bit too late. The pins go in for a double. The artillery strike will go up into the air. Cuffer's so low, getting swung around, and that just means that Quats can turn and hit as many members as he wants with his own Earth Shatter, and with the flashpoint just unlocking, it's time for them to hit the bags as well as hit some more of this flashpoint.
It's weird to say, but this is feeling more one-sided than the game versus MFC, and that was pretty damn one-sided because at least on New Junk City, there was a bit more back and forth. Ground Zero winning more fights. Here, it's basically all Order all day. And as far as playing the mirror composition goes, as I mentioned, it's just a lead for Order when they are faster on the ultimates. They already have the comp ready to go. Finally, for the first time, seeing the Ground Zero might have a few more ults to play through.
Yeah, right, so Doom's going to at least be able to get something. Okay, so this is what we like to see. An opening pick going the way of Ground Zero. They have to try and fight it. They have to try and get this next team fight going their way, especially now taking down Quads. Finally, we're seeing some life out of Ground Zero. It may take them all the way to their third flashpoint and the third map to get it done, but they at least wake up here and get themselves a bit more percent. Basically one team fight loss away from losing this map as well, which is the unfortunate part.
Did not see Crimson drop a lamp there. I don't know if it was on cooldown, I don't know where it was. It didn't get destroyed by the artillery either. That's interesting, and obviously losing Crimson means that when your Rhines are in trouble, as Kuffer and Quats ended up counterpinning each other. While Quats says no, Immortality Field to bail him out. It does. Shatter time. Photon Barrier available. Photon Barrier needs to come down first.
Oh, big TP that comes through as well, but this is where the Photon Barrier comes down. Cuffer looking to try and hit this Shatter if he possibly can. Throws it into the members of Order, collects onto 2 and claims him quick as anything. But it's played to Yen to get something back here on a Turtle, so it's not just an instant one-sided team fight for the side of Ground Zero.
Gotta clean up.
They have to make sure they get these kills now so they can start to get more of this percent on the board, and they've finally been able to get the lead back here onto Suravasa.
Be nice if they kill Felix too, but respecting the turret form, they'll let him get away. And as mentioned, lead has been accounted for. Window should come down by Turtle nice and quick, especially now that we're heading into OT. Don't delay, just use it.
Window will get dropped, and now with the artillery strike, they can go into the background, at least deals with the immortality field, but Quetzal goes down early on to Doomed, and that just means it's a good time to be a ground zero member because they are cleaning through order, much like they are the janitors right now here on Suravasa.
Good snowballing. They're the only ult on the table. At that point, you have to believe that even if Order have ultimates, you have to play through and just force everything you can because, well, you can't afford to lose any fights at this stage. So they're the only window. Unfortunately, Felix couldn't do anything to prevent that window coming through and getting value. As we head over towards Palace, things are slowly shifting over towards Order side again. If Order just kind of dump support ultimates plus wall at this stage, they should be able to win the neutral.
If they can get a lot done here, this could be nice for them. Hits two members with the Earth Shatter. Cuffer goes down early on to Felix, and that just means Plato again can do whatever he wants here. Gets the microwave rolling. Goes through these ground zero members. They want to try and get this death onto Quinn as fast as they possibly can.
Really, Photon Barrier is, I think, one of the more important ultimates in this matchup. But typically, your win rate is going to go massively up when Photon Barrier is available. So the pendulum will swing over towards Quinn at some stage, but he needs to find a bit of time to charge it up. As artillery coming through from Doomed is not going to be enough to really open things. You can maybe force high ground a little bit easier here by just laying it down with artillery fire. Force, at minimum, Order to TP away.
We try and force a bit of pressure here with the turret form, and now goes into the artillery strike. Wants to get that damage going in. Does a lot there towards Felix to get him off that high ground. But it's about getting the kills. They need to convert on it. Cuffer's oh so low. The immortality field has already been used. Quinn oh so low as well. That just means the two low members of Ground Zero will lose their life, and it's at the point where it's 71% going the way of Order. These late deaths can be oh so costly. A Doom that goes down, and Ground Zero are losing members at the late stages of this flashpoint and the late stages of this series.
It's basically done. I mean, 80+%.
They can't touch.
Well, Cover's going to have to. Alex is going to have to. You just have to walk up. Counter pin. Yep. No touch.
Unfortunate there for Ground Zero. They just were too far behind in this series. Too far behind on Suravasa as well. And Order will get themselves a 3-0 victory here in Overwatch Contenders Australia. Once again, another fast start to the day. And that was all Order all day. And
yeah, well,
I do feel bad for Ground Zero because I definitely feel like they wanted to put on a much better performance than what they did today here and yesterday as well. But I mean, it's the way the competition goes. Sometimes you have to play up against some really strong teams, even if you are only into the top 6.
And just like yesterday, it's the 1 point that we see on the flashpoint that is all Ground Zero to get to walk away with. At least they didn't get locked out 0 points, but I mean, such a small consolation prize. They did a good job of bouncing back for Ruins to get that 1 point.
Yeah.
But man, things could have gotten so much better on Palace. I just saw a general lack of target focus, even in the fights where it seemed like it could be even. There's no reason why they should get wrenched in those fights, but you just see players everywhere. Cuffer's on an island alone, completely surrounded. As Ryan's like, you can only hold shield for so long, you can't cover all angles. And that was later when things were more competitive earlier on. It's, again, very much like the game versus MFC. The first 2 points extremely favored over towards the side of Order here. And Ground Zero, maybe a couple of good fights here or there, but ultimately it wasn't enough at all.
Yeah, it really did feel like that there was just across the board just firing on a few more cylinders for Order than what it was for Ground Zero. They just weren't really able to get into this series, but I mean, all props to Order. They came in here, they played the compositions they wanted to play. I think they have some very good compositions that they like to play and are very good at with this Reinhardt and the in the Bash and the Symmetra and all and what have you. And they really kind of put the test to Ground Zero, and unfortunately for Ground Zero, they just weren't able to stand up to it. And Order going to move into a top 4 where
comfortably as well.
Yeah, comfortably, and I think they can also probably quite easily make this a top 3 as well. It's going to be hard for Quetzal as well as Mud Dogs to try and test Order, especially with how they've looked so far.
Well, at this stage, I mean, it's at least very clear. It's like, well, Ground Zero are definitely not of the caliber to make top 4. I think based on that performance, no doubt in my mind, this team is unfortunately 5th to 6th. It's not where you want to see a team like Ground Zero, especially based on their history, but based on their performance, it's probably where they deserve to be for this particular tournament, so that's where they'll end.
Yeah, I think the performances they put up there is probably a fair assessment of them. But enough about the losers. It's time for us to start talking to some of the winners. We've got Crimson here on the line, so let's see how they're feeling after this. Crimson, mate, another dub here in Overwatch Contenders Australia, so congrats on getting another top 4 here for Order. Kind of just talk us through what the expectations is for Order this time around, coming into another series when there's not really like a qualifier spot and what have you. Like, what are the boys feeling this time around a full series?
The boys are feeling top 2. I think we can beat Miku Fan Club because surprisingly we warmed up GZ against Miku, and because we were expecting GZ to win, and they lost very convincingly, which was very surprising for all of us. We were expecting them to be a top team. And after this win, it shows that we have, a chance. So top 3, top 2, definitely.
Do you feel like they have massively underperformed this tournament because they got cleaned out by you guys, or maybe you guys have just shot it big time and there's been a lot of improvement on your side, maybe a little bit of both even?
I think it's a little bit of both, because looking at GZ last season, they were looking a lot better with the old roster, even though they still have roughly the same core. So I'm not too sure. But I think we're playing a lot better than what we did last season. And
you think based on, having played GZ, you've also seen their performance versus Miku Fan Club. You think you've got a shot to take down Miku? Obviously, you've got to get through the lower bracket. There's Quetzal and Mud Dogs in there as well. But, eventually you'll have to face up against the Miku Fan Clubs and the Honeypots. You think that will definitely be in your favor, given that you've sort of seen how everyone else has played?
Yeah, I think Miku Fan Club, it will be another 5 mapper. We got to go 5 maps with them. It's happened every season since they're when they were invented. So
sure,
got to make it tradition. And
I'm super excited to see if you guys do go 5 maps with them. Crimson, mate, before I do let you go and enjoy the spoils victory between Quetzal and Mud Dogs, who do you think is going to come out on top?
Oh, I think surely a 5 mapper. And Mud Dogs, they're a very strong team. We've played against them a few times, and so they have potential. And Nanda, hey, he might just get a 5k every fight. So who knows?
That's very true.
50-50.
Yeah, I think it is going to be a pretty tight contest. But thanks to Crimson once again for bringing your insights here on the desk, and good luck in the next series.
Yep, thank you.
Cheers, mate.
Have a good one.
Yeah, it's always good to hear from Crimson. I think we've had him on the desk a couple of times now, especially when Order have been able to get some of those dubs as well. And I mean, I do have to agree with him. I think they have definitely improved on their performances from their previous tournaments. I think they've gotten to a pretty good spot. And I think seeing in that series as well, they've got a lot of good compositions, kind of like similar to Miku Fan Club, right? Like they've got their kind of compositions they like to play. They're very, very good on those heroes, and they force people to play around them.
Well, I actually like the Ryan look because you have a good, I wouldn't call it a counter comp, but you have a good matchup into what Miku Fan Club want to bring to the table. You know Romani's going to be playing plenty of that Jungle Queen, and of course just sticks onto the Rhine. That gives Order a huge advantage in terms of playing up against them. So, turning the strengths of Miku Fan Club maybe into their weaknesses, but that is way down the line. Order have to still get through a bunch of lower bracket games. Miku Fan Club would have to lose their game versus Honeypot, and then maybe they would reach each other in the lower bracket final, or, maybe Miku Fan Club would get an upset versus Honeypot. So it's still a match to wait a whole week for. I'm sure both teams will be ready for that when it eventually does happen, though. Yeah,
it's going to be very exciting to see what this top 3, top 4 is really going to start to look like. Before we even get there, we've got a little bracket match to get to. Before we even get to that, it is time for our Macca's play of the game. This time around, our Macca's play of the game. Kev, I got whispered in my ear. I heard this was apparently an ace from Mr. Felix, and we didn't even catch it. So this is one.
Didn't even count. I did not count. But he's been pounding, so it doesn't surprise.
2.
That was a great shot on the nade, by the way. When I saw that live, I was really impressed.
This was in the dying moments of this. Well, it actually was a 5K.
Real 5K.
I was much more thinking about map number 2 slipping away from ground 0, but props to Felix. Props to our team out the back as well, picking that one
and
up.
I gotta say as well, like, usually, you see Bash in gameplay, it's like, well, how impressive is Bash go brr? But like, here you can start to see the real test of competency of Bastion, I think, comes when you don't have turret form. And you see here when Felix doesn't have it, he's still hitting his left clicks. He's nailing those grenades, sticking them onto a tracer. Not an easy thing to do. We've seen multiple times Felix got a bunch of kills with the nade. I mean, he had a nade 2K at one stage as well, so he's able to really make you see him use it as utility to jump around, which is some of the tech that you have to know on Bastion. So he's really worked out this hero. I mean, yeah, it is a pretty basic hero. Maybe it doesn't take much to work out, but still, a really good performance. He got an opening frag on almost every fight. That's commendable. You got to call that out.
That's very true. I feel like his artillery strikes, we're getting a lot of kills when most of the time we see it as much more area denial rather than actual getting the kills. So big props to Felix this time around for the series victory up against Ground Zero. And commiserations to Ground Zero and their fans in the chat right now. We will not be seeing them anymore here in the 4 series, but there's 2 more teams that we do get to see a little bit more of here in the 4 series. That is going to be the Mud Dogs versus Quetzal. They're going to be here on our screens right after this break, so make sure you join us after this. As they go through this small little choke point, collects on Atlas, big on Earthshatter, collects on to so many members of Ground Zero. Quats will swing that hat. Everybody else is oh so low. They're starting to contest this point because they're losing so much of this percent. Finally, they get something done with a rail going into Felix. They're going to drop the beat as well here from Atlas. They wanted to try and play this tempo. They want to win this fight and get some semblance of control back into this map and into the series. Upper goes down, traded out by Quats as well. It's all onto the supports. Atlas as well as Turtle are the ones that were here. So finally, Ground Zero get control back at the point. The 99 goes away, but they need to hold on until reinforcements come in on Ground Zero. With the TP coming in front, this is going to be too many members in front of the Reinhardt. He goes in, hits them all, starts to lay in the damage, and it's the right click coming in from Felix that does the damage. And once again, Ground Zero are being completely outmaneuvered and completely smacked about. One support down. It is all too hard for them to try and get this done. A Copper just goes down, and I think that is what we're going to call the final nail in the coffin here for Ground Zero on Numbani. And Hayes is ticking up at such a rapid rate. That was instantaneous. Yep. And unfortunately for Ground Zero, it seems like they are once again having a case of the yips. Looking to try and assassinate somebody himself, but it wasn't going to be enough for them. Crimson goes up into the air here on the Baptiste, and finally Ground Zero. They win a team fight quite handily. And a lot. Window will get dropped, and now with the artillery strike, they can go into the background, at least deals with the immortality field, but Quats goes down early on to Doomed, and that just means it's a good time to be a Ground Zero member because they are cleaning through order, much like they are the janitors right now here.
The Monopoly game at Macca's is back, with 1 in 4 chances to win, and prizes like a $10,000 Amazon.com.au or Webjet e-gift card, fuel for a year from Ampol, and more. Get into Macca's and play today.
Another fast series to open up a Thursday evening here for Overwatch Contenders Australia Fall Series, and that's just the way we like it here on the desk. Unfortunately, we do like to see a whole lot of Overwatch, but sometimes we just get treated to a 3-0 here on the desk. Kev, one team has already said goodbye. We have to say goodbye to another here between Quetzal as well as Mud Dog, and I mean, I don't know. It's kind of hard to pull these two teams apart, I think, from what I've seen so far.
This is what it's going to come down to. Can Mud Dogs look up? Are they able to point their mouse towards the skies and realize Nanda is destroying them on fire? That will be the question to be answered.
I mean, that feels like that's the question every single time Nanda is in a server.
And yet many teams don't know how to look up. So,
yeah.
Interesting.
And it's kind of crazy because Honeypot seems to give everybody the blueprint and says, this is how you do it. This is what you should do.
The
and
problem
this is how you win.
Not everyone has an Adam Diva on their team, which is a pretty big difference.
Yeah, that is very true. It can be a pretty big difference indeed. But as always, ladies and gentlemen, you guys are well aware that this game is brought to you by the Monopoly game at Macca's. That's right, you guys can scan and play today, right here, right now. Get it done. Get yourself some Monopoly in front of you. I'm going to say in your face, but I don't think that really makes much sense. But,
No, just hold the phone up to your face and look at it.
And Monopoly at it.
Yep.
Yep. Get that one done. We're going to be on Busan again. Yes. Exciting. More maps, more different stuff. Let's see what we get. What are the fire maps here on Busan?
Yeah, not
Obviously
really
not
any.
Mecha Base.
Not really any. Not on Mecha Base.
Downtown?
Not any of them really. I think they're all kind of average to bad. I think Echo is pretty playable on Downtown,
Okay.
at least historically. So not amazing for Fire. So it's maybe a bit of an unlucky roll of the dice here for Quetzal in terms of what they would like to be playing. But I mean, Nana can just play Genji here. That's probably the expectation.
Yeah, he can definitely can. I know it feels like we do definitely shoehorn the old Flyers into Nanda, but he is somebody who is...
And yet he picks them all the time. So
That is very true.
We tell no lies here.
But he definitely does have a few more heroes that are up in his arsenal. So let's see what we get. Looks like we got a little bit of JR action.
He's going to do on the old rat. This could be interesting. I mean, it's not as... Jungling's a little bit hard to hit with the nades. So we'll see what Nanda can do. And this is the kind of the problem. You play double flex DPS. Your rolls are very projectile favored, and they're just going to run Nanda down.
Yeah, they just TP into the background here. Jake just goes in with the turret form and completely decimates Nanda, and unfortunately for him, he just isn't able to get any value out of the J Rizzle just yet. And Mud Dog, they win a very convincing, very fast early opening neutral and get themselves a decent amount of ult charge to get themselves the first control of the point as well.
You know what they needed? They needed Atoll, Sojin again, and on the Genji, because we saw that look previously, and now that Atoll's taking the Genji, Nanda's going to go over towards something else like a Hanzo. I think the only other thing that Nanda could possibly go here based on Sherpa is the Mei, which is not as ideal.
Ooh, JCap was stuck between a rock and a hard place, and unfortunately for him, there is just not many ways for him to bounce out of that situation. Lumi gets the double kill once again, who has been a pretty good addition. I don't want to say addition, pretty good player for Mud Dogs, right? It did feel like that when we first saw them, it was Kami that was the original tank, but I believe if I'm, putting my twos together, I feel like they were filling in until Lumi was ready to play.
Lumi had to be summoned and complete the summoning ritual.
They did it. Now, looks like we are seeing Mud Dogs once again trying to win a fight, and they win the fight by starting out by taking out JCap. Atoll got into the background, but with this photon barrier, it is all too hard to try and get these fights going, especially when they're having to be on multiple fronts. And Mud Dogs are just kind of swatting away anything that Quetzal are throwing towards them.
It's not even what Lumi's doing, because when you look at ult charge rates between Jacob and Lumi, Jacob's ahead. It's the DPS difference here in terms of what Hypnotic and Jake are able to output. We haven't even seen other ultimates on board. We're like 60% plus. Usually the back would have a window by now. Netra's finally got one. Probably be used here.
Yeah, just be able to hold off some more of these entrance points. Trying to do a little bit of extra damage is JCap, goes in with the Rampage, connects onto multiple members, and Jay does not have the answer with the beat, but that is a lot of damage that JCap does, and finally, we're seeing something out of Quetzal, and it's off the back of a 4-piece from JCap.
Yeah, no sound barrier there. Jay dies on 85. Lamp can only do so much for you. Lumi's too far behind. Well, a little bit further behind, but enough behind that. I believe Lumi was on 90% when JCap pulled through the Jungle Queen ultimate of the Rampage. And as mentioned previously, JCap had that lead despite Quetzal very handily losing these fights. But all of the ult charge was going to the Muddog DPS. The other 3 players weren't getting much.
Yeah. So now we'll see what they look like when they're the ones in control, and they lose it quite quickly with Atoll going down early on here. So they're going to try and use the window to get some more of these members down. The Rampage goes through, connects onto JCap. Sector doesn't have the beat to respond with either here, so it's going to be more members dying without any real response coming in from Quetzal. Maybe Nana can do something here. He's got a Dragon Strike, doesn't get it off because it's the nade that takes him down from Jake, and Mud Dogs will continue their charge and continue to take more members of Quetzal with them to the grave, especially now that they're at 99%. And this looks like it is all but done on the mecha base. It looks like it will be. So nobody touches, and that is 100-32, so a little more competitive than our first series.
I don't know if either of these supports on Quetzal got an ultimate there. Obviously, we saw towards the end the sound barrier was available, but ended up being unused.
Definitely no Kitsune Rush coming in from Nomu.
Okay, well then Nomu just ends the map on 70%. Sector ending on the actual ultimate, but can use it. I think part of this just comes down to the fact that, look, if you're going to look for the Jungle Queen, and you should know that Lumi's going to play the Jungle Queen because that's all Lumi has realistically played so far, is Lumi will actually hover the Arresa here just to prove a point. But basically, you look at that opening map, very likely, high likelihood it's going to be Jungle Queen Mirror. You know you can pull through a Sojourn Genji if you just put Atoll in the Sojourn first. And didn't happen, which was, in my opinion, a mistake. So, as mentioned, downtown is good for the Echo. But I guess you could just force the Pharmacy early. Hypnotic and Jake are already ready for it. You got double hit scans on the DPS line, double hit scans on the support line as well. So they'll, maybe all 4 of them will just simply look at Nanda at the same time.
Yeah, they've definitely done the research needed here. They at least deal with one of these constructables, but it seems like when Nanda hits directs like that, it doesn't matter how much hit scan that you have, because if you just lose your HP bar to all these direct rockets, it is too hard to deal with. Hypnotic at least gets him off the corner with that Helix rocket. Nanda's oh so low. Nomu can't keep him alive. We'll be able to at least get the res so they can continue to be fighting fit. And Atoll deals with Lumi, and this is a dominant early start here for Quetzal.
Yeah, I mean, Lumi can't really do much to help here. You should be on the Diva. There's the Diva. So it's Diva, double flex, double hits. They're real. This is like as hardcore of an anti-fire composition as you can absolutely go. I mean,
and he opens with a 3-piece anyways.
Well, yeah, well, like I said, didn't look up. Simply didn't look up.
It is such a funny dynamic to have with Nanda here in a server. He just dominates so much respect from literally everybody in the scene that you either get full 5 counters, you don't look up, no matter what happens, this man will still make a highlight reel, and he's looking to try and get it here done against Jake. Lumi's oh so low here with the mech as well. Starting to try and heal it up with the Alari, but that's a nice little shot. It was actually Netro, he got him from the side.
I think they both hit him.
There was a bit of a body shot from the Widowmaker this time around. I don't think the res stuck, no. So it seems like Nomu had to pull off of that one. Otherwise, she would have lost her life. Jacob at least gets the kill there onto Jake. Everything is oh so chaotic for both of these two teams. It means that Hypnotic can just go through onto the back lines. Now gets attack visor rolling through. It's all too hard to try and get on top of that Sigma. You could have seen that being a little bit of something for Quetzal to fall behind, but it was completely torn to pieces by Hypnotic and that Helix rocket.
Yeah, Hypnotic just had a tiny little bit of the attack visor left and sees Nanda streaking across the skies, and while he looked up, he got that kill. He got the Helix direct, which, by the way, does a ton of damage now with the buff. But Nanda nearly had an opportunity. He saw the possibility. He was like, I can fly in, instantly conk on top of Hypnotic's face. Barrage for a free kill should be fine. Didn't happen. And now the big swap off, which means you're waving the white flag here if you are Quetzal, but it also does mean a couple of heroes on the side of Muddog maybe going to be a bit more relevant. The Diva no longer makes as much sense. The Widowmaker no longer makes as much sense.
All right, nice little attack visor coming in here from Atoll. Went in for that little bit of an off angle, especially with Jacob going on. Seems like a little bit of a solo mission, and We touched on this the other day for Quetzal, that Jacob has been one of those real standout Sigma players in the entirety of his career, so it's always good to see him come back into it. And the contention of the point coming back in, we saw a Gravitic Flux come in from Jacob, gets the extra free kill there on Tenetra as they do come in. So these staggers are starting to work really in the favor of Quetzal off the back of a few of these ultimates connecting, and Nanda with the 2-piece as well.
Yeah, Jake and Looming need to think about swapping now. This Orisa would be far better in this matchup. Ooh. Jake will get the kill on Nanda though, who was low HP, didn't get healed up by anybody. Rez at least comes through, so some more value being brought out by the Mercy, even though there's no fire to pocket anymore.
It's always useful when you're still able to utilize the Mercy, even with the Pharmacy going sideways with some of these swaps off. You'd like to see Nomu try and get onto something herself, but Jay will be able to take down Jacob. It's a big Bioned coming in from Sector as well. Doesn't really do much for them though, and Quetzal are going to try their best with a Nano Blade. The Dragon does go through onto Jay, looking for a second, doesn't get it because he got hit by the Captive Sun. And Atoll will try and stand and do something with this. Bionay wants to try and find out onto Hypnotic, doesn't get him done, and gets done dirty by Lumi as well. Jacob's going to come in onto the ball. Quetzal, they're at the 99, so they want to see if they can win a fight here and try and jag one up against Mud Dogs, but it's not going to be it with attack visor being committed by Hypnotic.
50% left to go though for Mud Dog to make this comeback happen. 99 at least confirmed for Quetzal. Jacob wanted to ball for at least a little while to try and contest, but swapping back, I wouldn't have even minded honestly going back to the Sigma. I thought that was a fine pick. But it'll be Diva instead. Really weird looking comp for Quetzal. Oh, Jake's been somehow just nailing Nanda time and time again. When it's in these pure neutral situations where a full reset's occurred, and Jake has sightlines to work through, he can really hit some shots.
A very dirty little angle here. I thought that could have been something he was able to find a kill on. Nomu takes about half HP, so the Mercy will be running around with the Valkyrie still available as well. Jacob's going to try and go into the backline here, deal with Jake, who has been a thorn in their side. The Suzu as well as the grapple away means that Jake gets so much distance between him as well as the rest of Quetzal. Going to try and commit some more of these ultimates to get in here, but it's the bomb from Lumia that gets the kill onto Atoll, and now with Nanda finally being able to wake up, get into the background, they've done enough to at least make this a very favourable fight for Quetzal. They're going in once again, trying to get on top of these members. Hypnotic goes down, Lumi's the last line of defense, it seems, for Mud Dogs, who are on the 99 themselves. So this is the final fight, no matter which way that you will cut it. Jacob tried his best to get on top of that Captive Sun, but it doesn't matter because Atoll gets the 3-piece with the tactical visor, looks for the 4. Nanda snakes it and says, see you later. We're going to go further into Busan. So it's 1-1 apiece now. We're going to finish it out on downtown.
And more fly territory here, so I'm very curious to see what the side of Mud Dogs are going to bring to the table straight away. They could just run back the entire composition again. They might even be smart to, because I think if you're Nanda, you just test the waters every single time. There's no reason to not at this stage, and a lot of what gave them that 99% advantage to start out with was the fact that Nanda the Fire just exploded on that opening fight. Huge snowball for Quetzal, and it took a while for Mud Dog to be able to really compete. I don't know about this Winston comp though. Not usually one of JCap's heroes, but something JCap's had to pick up over time. Still think it's a little weird in this particular meta. I mean, like, if you really want to play this, I would prefer the Doom, and I would maybe even consider the Life Weaver for Numa instead. Like, what are you really pocketing? You're just going to be pocketing Atoll again, I suppose, so far.
Oh, that's a big Bionade that came in there from Sector. Hit onto multiple members, and now they're getting completely pinched, and they have to try and do something with this TP play, and it seems like Jake just turned and swiveled. Doesn't have to look up, looks down, and looks down the barrel of more Quetzal members.
You're playing at the Jungle Queen. This is just going to get worse. So you have to get off this.
Yep. I was going to say, like, surely now they're going to switch on to one of these flyers, and the Echo will come out here for Nanda. It'll be very hard for the Jungle Queen to try and look up.
Yeah, Jungle Queen, historically awful versus flyers.
Oh, he was on 12 HP. The commanding shot doesn't really do much, especially when the laser beam comes in. And now with Atoll being able to run a little bit rampant, this is a very free fight for Quetzal. Jcap, though, is the one that gets D-Max almost instantaneously, but it's Nanda on the hype train once again. Tears through 2 members looking for a 3rd. Doesn't get it, but it doesn't matter. Mud Dogs get smacked back almost instantaneously.
You have to counter swap Nanda or you lose. That's just simply a fact. So,
yep.
Mud Dog, there it is, looming straight away. Get it off the Jungle Queen. It's just not going to work out for you versus this Echo. Even unpocketed Echo on this map is quite good. So, with the pocket, man, it's just going to pop up even harder.
He's already got the duplicate as well. Kev, like he builds that ultimate so fast. Oh, Netra gets a freebie there onto Atoll. Wasn't quite sure how that happened. Maybe it was just a few nifty little body shots, and Nanda goes down to a right click. Will at least get the res out, but with the rest of the supports going down, this is going to be such a hard tell for Quetzal to try and fall back into. Maybe you see something with a duplicate onto the D.Va and they can try and fight with 2 tanks, but they haven't really been able to do much when it comes to getting some more of this space back. Their supports are starting to return back here to the middle part of downtown. Maybe with Atoll here peppering them in the backsides, they can try and force a bit of the attention from Mud Dogs. It is very hard. They're attacking from multiple different angles here, and if Jake can find another angle once again that he did in the last time, Hypnotic's going to go up into the air, wants to try and pepper out onto Nanda, who was just playing around these buildings on the right-hand side. They're going to use the Valkyrie. A lot of these ultimates is being used here from Quetzal. They want to try and get the damage done that they can. Lumi will eat up one of those pulse bombs, one of those ultimates as well, but it's everybody else that's doing a lot of damage so far. This beat is going to be big from the Mud Dogs to be able to save a bit of their face. Try and stand here onto the point and try and do the damage that they can. They're going to put the nano boost back onto Nanda once again, and that just means a lot of damage for this Echo to rain down into this point. And finally, after what felt like an age, it's about 30% of an age as well, Kev. They're actually able to deal with the Mud Dogs and send them back to spawn.
Haven't got the cap yet though, so there's still cap being found by Mud Dogs. They're able to just push this one further. Looking for the 80, they'll have to be settling for 78 here, which is still fine. Eventually, once Nanda's able to get out of his duplicate form, the Hypnotic Photon Barrier subsides, and Quetzal's just allowing Nanda to once again find this value, get those kills, huge damage on the Jake, and getting rid of the Bastion is so easy when you have this Echo that can land stickies safely. Focusing beam, able to land as well, super easy just because of the huge hitbox. Oh, that's a good pulse. Saved by the lamp though.
Yeah, but it still left Jake on a sliver of HP, and as soon as that lamp goes away, so does Jake. And this was a very convincing fight win here from Quetzal. It was a fast one as well, so it's not like they're going to get a whole boatload of this percent back, but they're at least able to get it back to even.
The Sim Bastion here is just awkward now. I think if you continue playing Sim Bastion, and they're already losing, but the Sim Bastion will just have such little value. Like, what are you TPing on? You're just TPing onto Sector every single time. You're getting outranged because Nanda is playing Skybox and Jake can't do enough damage versus a target that far away. You're being outflanked by the fact that there's both a Tracer and an Echo, and then Nanda can just do this.
Yeah, it's just the fact that it seems like Nanda just really has kind of free reign from them. Even though they have put their attention onto him multiple times, it doesn't seem to really matter because he has taken down 2 backlines, and now with the res not available for them, it won't really matter all too much because everybody else is just being eviscerated by the remaining members of Quetzal. And the Mud Dogs, unfortunately for them, they had a pretty good start here onto downtown, but it looks like so far, with only a few members left remaining, the Mud Dogs might not be able to hold on to this. They haven't made this look clean just yet, have Quetzal, so they're going to try something with the Nano Boost as well as the Valkyrie coming in. But Nanda joining the fray once again. That is a free 2-piece with the focusing beam. Goes in towards the duplicate, wants to get rid of this pesky little tank for the Mud Dogs. They're going to drop the Photon Barrier. They will lose the first mech life, and with that, they will win the first map on Busan. And Quetzal get themselves the foot in the door.
No disrespect for the rest of the players, but when Nanda's in the server, it feels like he can just 1v5. He is capable of just destroying the enemy team, especially when we give him pocket. This is like one of those ranked games where there's just an unbelievable DPS on the other side that won't die because they're permanently pocketed, always rezzed, and you're just sitting there scratching your head. But to be honest, I don't think Mud Dog did themselves any favors on the last comp because Sim Bastion notoriously weak versus dive versus flanking, and they don't know where to look. They're just getting completely surrounded. Atoll's running circles around them on the Tracer. Free pulse bombs on the Bastion as well. Huge hitbox. You can't find Nanda because he's playing against Geometry and he's playing Skybox, and he'll just dive down and completely swoop down a player on the support line, and, you know, there's nothing can really look at him. And you have a D.Va, great, but your DPS is just not competing. There needed to be a Soldier back in that play. I don't know about the Widowmaker, but even like a Soldier and a Sojourn at the same time. I don't know, just get off the Sim, get off the Bastion. Those two heroes no longer work in that situation.
Yeah, it really did feel like that they lost a little bit of confidence in a lot of their hit scan after that Sanctuary went the way that it did. It still did feel like that he was putting a bit of a performance on, but it just feels like they just needed something extra. I do agree with you, right? It just felt like the Sim was almost dead in the water most of the time, and there was multiple moments where Hypnotic was still an issue for Nanda that he had to concede and had to fall back onto that Genji himself. So they've definitely done enough to at least rattle Nanda in the skies when they do have some of these counters to it, but without running them once again here on downtown, it was almost a little bit of an inevitability as soon as that Echo came out, because we saw how straightforward it looked like it was for the side of Mud Dogs, and then Nanda went on to the Echo and the script completely flipped.
And also he gets helped out by the fact that Jacob is an off-tank player that plays a decent enough diva to help out Nanda. Like, Jacob doesn't even need to dive in and do too much. He can just help and pocket Nanda the entire time if he wants to, or layer the Matrix on top of Jake to, once again, remove any output from that bash, and your gameplay is just non-existent when you're covered by Matrix. There's an Echo flying around you that can hit you with everything because it's just impossible to miss versus Sebastian. You are going to hit every shot.
Yeah, very, very big hitbox and very, very simple to try and hit a lot of those tickies and the beam as well. But we're going to go into our second map of Numbani. We are blazing through this series, ladies and gentlemen. It is nice and tight, nice and even between both these two teams. Is exactly what we wanted. Even what Mr. Crimson did tell us as well. He feels like this one's going to be a 5-mapper and you can't really pick where it's going to go. So I do love me a series that is nice and tight and have things for us to talk about. We're not sitting here watching somebody get spawn camped for 30 minutes. We're not watching a team get completely eviscerated in the server and it being extremely one-sided.
This should have been a Midtown pick, I think, coming through from Mad Dogs. I think Numbani is potentially the wrong go because A is going to be super good, exceptionally good for Quetzal. Fire is viable, Echo extremely viable. I mean, if you feel confident enough that you can beat one of the Flyers, then it's fine. Once you get past A, maybe the value of the Flyers starts falling, but it doesn't really fall off until you get to C. So a lot of work has to be put into this from Mud Dog to actually get a win on this map. I think this is potentially a poor choice. I would have even accepted Iconvolve. Even Iconvolve the A is very good for Flyers as well. The only map where Flyers is not going to be as dominant on any other points for Hybrid has got to be Midtown. And they didn't choose Midtown.
Maybe they have some confidence in their own defense, in some parts of their offense as well. They're going to come out on their own Echo.
I respect that.
They want to try and keep this fight in the skies, it seems. So, different compositions than what we've seen previously on Numbani's, though.
There is definitely more output coming through from the Mud Dog side to the double flex support.
Yep.
Nana can also make the difference if he can really operate that blue beam extra damage. Although actually they get nerfed, which is a little bad for this comp, but still they've held on to their ground very strongly at Quetzal.
Yeah, just being able to utilize that space enough for them. Jay got completely eviscerated early on from some of the laser beams coming in from Atoll, and that just means as soon as you lose one of those supports, it's very hard for you to keep this ball rolling. And Mud Dogs, they lose the opening neutral, and Nanda, once again, he has duplicate.
Off one fight.
Yeah, it's nuts. Absolutely nuts.
Maybe a little bit harder in terms of matchup and not just because Jake was way too far forward there. He thought he could just confidently walk up, but Nanda's not going to show you the respect, and that can bite him as well because now Nanda's gone too far forward and he's unresable. So timing opportunity here for Mud Dogs to brute force their way in.
Yeah, they still have 4 members of Quetzal to try and get through as well, and they haven't really seen the positions of many of them either. They are starting to walk through, so there's a lot of these ultimates being able to come through. Atoll gets the kill there onto Hypnotic of all things. Atoll, though, he's in some trouble. They're going to get rid of the Immortality field, not before Atoll gets rid of Jake. Jay is oh so low and gets slammed back into the ground from the Gravitic Flux, and as I said, right, they are walking into 4 members of Quetzal, who a lot of them have their ultimates, and they are just using that advantage to their fullest, and that just sends Mud Dog back into spawn. And yes, they may have gotten themselves an opening pick onto Nanda, but he is now back in the fray.
They couldn't utilize it at all. Because you have to remember, Numbani A spawns defense far closer.
Gravitic Flux now into the Captive Sun. They're going to get booped, bapped, and bam, back into spawn. JCap and Sector, see you later. Nice little play there from Mud Dogs. Nice little combination. But Atoll is able to get their 1 pick back there onto Natural. We will have a duplicate. Nanda, he's getting a 2-piece as well, so maybe the DPS can hold strong here for the side of Quetzal. Some individual performances from them are looking quite big so far. It's Nanda and Numu who are just holding on to this point. They're going to try and make this expensive for the Mud Dogs. And they've done at least a decent amount of damage here to try and burn through Hypnotic. He gets laser beamed down, not before losing out on the Mercy, but now it's only Lumi that's left alive here on the point. And Mud Dogs, they get themselves about 2 1/3 ticks, and that is all they will get, though.
That's not bad, but time remaining is a little bit unfortunate. But we brought that one down to low numbers. A good combo coming through. Netra and Lumi dropping both ultimates at the same time. Netra waiting for the Flux members to drop to the ground to safely connect the Captive Sun. They got rid of a lot of the defense, but Nanda's still being alive. Pocketed means that even at a 2v2, okay, you take Nubu down, but Nanda just survives the 1v2, waits for respawners, Respawns are favored for defenders here, as discussed.
Oh, they just got eviscerated. They walked directly into Sector's wall, and that is where they just delete Mud Dogs. They walked out, and they just died. Like, I watched Lumi's HP bar go just go...
Yeah. I don't know if Lumi had grasp at the time or not,
but it felt like he died so fast that you... I mean, unless you're preemptively grasping going up there, like, you just
you
die.
hear the voice line for the Ant Matrix, and you just shift. You just have to get ready. And now, with time remaining, looks like Jay's going to have to touch. I don't think anyone else is fast enough.
They're going to try here, but they've gone completely through the teleporter, and Hypnotic gets eviscerated once again. They're going to try and get something done here with this tack visor, and Jake needs to find some more of these members from Quetzal, but their HP bars are just not falling down, and Nandi turns himself into a Junker Queen, and look how hard it is for Mud Dog to even get past him, let alone a second tank that is guarding the point right now, and that is a nice full hold coming in here from Quetzal.
You're looking at Mud Dogs, you're like, man, how do we stop this Nando Echo or whatever he plays fire? It's just everything is oppressive. The only time you're beating Quetzal is when you're forcing Nando onto a Genji, which is also when Honeypot had great matchup as well. It's like, okay, we forced Nando on the Genji, things are looking good now. But with a full hold, and actually it's a better full hold than what we saw in our previous series, or 54.9 versus the 63, I believe, that Ground Zero got.
63.2.
So somehow this ended up being even more dominant. Yeah, my dog really wanted to play the Sigma versus Sigma situation, but for them to actually set up on the high ground, they need to be able to push that Echo away, establish dominance on the high ground, and just be able to outrange. And on paper, it seemed you would say that the comp is stronger from Mud Dog because they have the extra Ilarion there as well, decent damage output and all of that kind of stuff. But you never saw Netra get into a good spot; just wasn't allowed to position at all in this game.
Yeah, there was that good moment where it was a gravitic flux into the captive sun, which did a lot of damage for them, but that's when we just saw the DPS start to clutch up, right? Like, Atoll Nanda really started to clutch up for the side of Quetzal.
This is interesting with Jacob because they're playing Echo and Winston at the same time, and typically you're playing the Winston, you're thinking, okay, if Lumi goes and now is on a Junker Queen, which he's not, but like hypothetically, if Lumi was then to swap over to Junker Queen, now that's a bad matchup in Nanda. So you have to consider Lumi has to stay on the Diva just to deal with Nanda, which means Jacob is not going to be hard counted here.
Yeah, so it's a whole lot of these chess to mind games for both of these two teams with their compositions, and that's why a player like Nanda, you can never really count them out just because of the pressure they can put on just inside the server by existing. So, seeing the initial openers, Jacob will try and get a little bit of this high ground and a little bit more of this back poke, and unfortunately for Hypnotic, there's no HP for him to try and find. He goes down, Nanda finds him, and that is the opening pick here for the attackers, but Jake is just starting to eviscerate them up here on the high ground. Soldier 76 completely untouched, and they will send the Flyers backpacking.
Well, Nanda's going to go for the long flank, so he has a lot of control on the backside now. And if you're Mud Dogs, you don't really know where he's going to pair from, so they have to look everywhere. Oh, he's going for the spawn camp. Ooh. That was really sneaky. Unfortunately, you're trying to spawn cap a Genji who has a lot of abilities to get away. But off angling here is nice because you're forcing attention away. You get free picks on that pylon, so can't abuse pylon if you're defending. And here comes Jacob as well, this assist.
Yeah, they just put the pressure onto Jay as well, right? They boop him off the high ground. They now pull Lumi back down in the other side of this building. And as you said, just pulling the attention from the Mud Dogs to try and send them in different areas. Nomu's going to try their best. Sector TP'd to the Mercy and TP'd off of the map.
Absolutely baited. I think Nanda should not have taken that aggressive fly though. He crossed the sight lines all the way to the left.
And Numu was like on like 10 HP.
Well, after flying towards him, because, well, that's the target. You don't go for the Echo there, you go for the Mercy. And because Sector TP onto Numu or whoever, that's one support down. Numi's low HP has to then cross sight lines again. It's like, well, you're probably going to die there. Survived for a little bit, eventually gets taken down. That was a little bit awkward coming through for Quetzal. Not a waste of time.
They still have 2 minutes. They know exactly where the goalposts are, so they know what they need to do right now. Jason going to try his best with his tactical fires. I wants to try and look towards Numu. This is going to be a big bomb. Nanda goes back onto the other side. Is able to at least deal with some more of these members of Quetzal, but not before losing the duplicate. And they will drop their own bomb here. That's a nice little Helix rocket on Jacob. He's getting outside of the mech as well. And Atoll loses his life to Jake, who is starting to go on a tear here on the Soldier 76. The aim is looking crisp here from the old man, and that will mean a 10-player kill streak and a hold from the Mud Dogs.
It's a 4K in that play as well. Jake playing the legs, looking like a certain other Jake from another region, who's now retired. Looking good. That's how you shut down the Echo. That's how you shut down Quetzal. And now, honestly, the full hold, the fuller hold, starting to look like a possibility. I mentioned you got to get Nanda off one of the flyers. It's happened. That's check that one off the checklist. You got double support ultimates. You got Genji Blade coming up. You can absolutely hold this now.
Yeah, they've got a lot of resources to play through, especially because it's only for a minute. The Dragon Blade, speaking of, goes through onto Nanda. Atel, once again, seems to be the only member so far for Quetzal that's been able to get consistent kills for them on this offense.
Can they get the cleanup here? Because that probably wasn't enough for 2 ultimates. If they can get some more late dead set then time because of massive issue.
It's going to be hard. They are trying to commit here onto the D.Va, but it looks like they have gotten themselves out of dodge for now, especially with how low that Lumi is. That defense matrix isn't going to be up forever. Jacob's going to go into the background here. Wants to take down Jay. Gets at least the immortality field out from him. It looks like it was inside of the roof, but it doesn't matter. Both the 2 members on the high ground go down, and Jacob is still alive. They're going to be able to get this D.Va back at healthy. Netro needs something huge from his captive son. I don't think it's really going to do much, as it's much more of a escaping ability for them right now. At least gets rid of Noma, who came back on this Lucio, and everybody is on critical HP for Quetzal. They haven't been able to convert these big kills they had on the high ground just yet. They will throw in a bomb, but Netra gets the kill onto JCap. Netra's gone huge so far for the side of the Mud Dogs. There's a little bit of damage onto the point, but that's all it's really going to be. The Mud Dogs have come back 5 strong, and they are not being moved by the Quetzal members. Jake comes in once again for a highlight reel, and they will full lure hold onto Quetzal, and they will take this map as well. We are going guaranteed deeper into this series here, Kev.
The rare fuller hold. And what a clutch from Netra as well. Captive Sun only gets the 1 kill, but it starts with 1 thing. You start snowballing the defense. You get your respawners back a little bit quicker. Jake's already sprinting on the soldier. You're already closer, plus the sprint. Jake's going to be there. And Jake has been the solid factor on that defense on the soldier that has done so much extra work. I mean, you do enough to get Nanda off the Echo, and you just see how different this Quetzal squad looks when Nanda's not on one of the flyers. The Genjis, Nanda can play Genji, it's fine, but like where their strength really is going to be on the flyers, and their team, generally speaking, looks a lot less competitive once that's not a factor.
Yeah, exactly. It really does feel like that as soon as a lot of the oppressing factors in the sky are gone, then it really just means that Mud Dog are able to just kind of get themselves back in their old systems and really just be able to move through the map much like they have so far across, you know, a lot of the competition. But, ladies and gentlemen, that is the second map done and dusted. We are sitting at 1-1, so that means we get to go have a break here on the desk, and you guys get to go back and enjoy at least the map number 4. we get treated to something a little special tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We go further in the series than just the first 3 maps because it is 1-1 right now between Quetzal as well as Mud Dogs. So this is something special for us to watch here because it seems like so far Mud Dogs, they don't like doing 3s and 0s. Every series that they've had so far has gone minimum of 4 maps. So.
Yeah, well, this is a team that took MFC to 5. So
very true. And almost won that 5th map as well.
That's true. So, I mean, it's like, really, we expect Mud Dogs to have the capability to go the distance in a series, certainly versus very good competition. It would be strange to see them get locked out 3-0 here. So the fact that they came back in Numbani, delivered us a fuller hold, which is rare, is impressive, but I think within the realm of possibility for a team like Mud Dog, and they got there.
Yeah, they definitely did, and I think they've really been able to, you know, as you said at the end of that map as well, I think they've kind of unlocked the special sauce. I think, you know, Jake is really starting to pop off quite a lot on this sort of 76, but it seems like this formula so far is, if we get into this basic nitty-gritty of some very straightforward compositions for both these two teams, it really does feel like that Mud Dogs have the upper hand. But when Nanda is on these flyers and he's not forced to switch, that's when it looks like it is very much favored towards Quetzal. So it seems like we have this very interesting dichotomy between both these two teams, right? Where one team is really trying to hard force a lot of these flyers and be really aggressive and really oppressive in the sky, whereas the other team just wants a straight up natural game where they feel much more confident.
Oh, we're going to see the Junker Wing mirror on this map as well. I'm going to say that this is feeling to me more Mud Dog favored.
Yeah.
Servasa, I mean, I think both of the possible picks, I mean, we don't have a lot of data on it, but I'm pretty sure that flyers won't be that viable here, given that the map layout, there's indoor points, enough indoor points that it's like super awkward for the flyers to gain value on. Particularly on Servasa, where, I mean, actually on both maps, Arena on New Junk City and Market, which is both the A points here, very indoors. Low ceilings. Well, actually, the ceiling is on Market is probably better than New Junk City. So if you want to pick one of the maps, Servasa is slightly better, but I'm really heavily theory crafting in favor of Nanda here, but I just don't think this is going to be the map for it. I think this is going to be, you know, you'd have to go back towards either, as I was saying, a Junker Queen Mirror, or in this case, Jacob's going to go Orisa. Don't mind the Torb, but I think the Bastion output is a little bit insane at the moment.
Yeah, we'll have to see if that's something that we're going to see come out of Nanda, or whether or not this is just going to be what they're going to stick to for the entirety of this map of Servasa. Anyway, Lumi's going to come out here with the Junker Queen. They will get the TP into the backline as well. Jake just gets himself out of dodge just in time. A lot of these little consumables have been deleted right now, but Nomu gets the first opening pick there onto Lumi off the back of the Baptiste. Now with Atol up into the air, just laser beams down the remaining members of Mud Dogs, and they will lose the opening fight.
Good pacing there. I mean, showed no mercy to Hypnotic and Jake. Get straight on top of the Bastion. Farm a little bit of damage there to heal up to give you supports. Slightly faster ult charge.
That's like the most min-max thing I've ever seen.
I mean, first ults matter, and Numu's ahead. 10%, which or more actually now, so first window here is going to be a decent difference maker.
Alright, they're going to go up onto the high ground. Nomu has to fall back down onto the point. We'll get the Immortality Field out just in time, but Jake goes into the turret form and just gets rid of Atol, who was such a thorn in their side, but it's everybody else that loses their life. They lose the Symmetra, they lose the Junker Queen, and now without this beefy member in the front lines, it is so hard for the Mud Dogs to hold on, and they had such a nice start by taking down Atol, but it seems like it didn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, you just trade, and trading the tank is so huge.
Yeah.
And you're also in a state where, like, okay, well, Jake spent his turret form, so now the Bastion is mostly pretty weak. There's not going to be the same level of output. Best part about that for Quetzal, they didn't spend any ultimates.
Yeah.
And it looks like there's not even going to be a touch. Mud Dog are going to give this one up.
Yeah, they're just going to try and get themselves a bit of rotational
Which means
advantage.
you're not going to force ultimates out of Quetzal for taking a point. This entire A point gone for 0 ult expenditure. And now as we head into the neutral for the next point on Temple, it's just going to be 5 ults to not 5 ults.
And we've also seen what this Terror Surge can do in these small little choke points, but yeah, they just walk directly in towards the window, and as you said, they just failed the TP a little bit here. So
the window's misplaced anyway.
They walked into a bit of a meat grinder, and that was just Jake in the turret form and just eviscerated Nanda as well as Atol, who were just standing there out in the open, hoping the TP did something.
You're supposed to TP the Orisa into the team with the Terror Surge, but that should never happen. I think the TP got broken so quick. So Jacob's just sitting there terror surging the corner. That was a huge fumble. It was 5 ultimates to a lot less ultimates on the side of Mud Dogs, and Quetzal had the biggest lead you could imagine that is now gone.
Yeah, they had so much available to them, and now it is completely in the wind. Nanda is going to come back here on the Hanzo as well, so haven't really felt the presence of the Hanzo in any of the maps that he's pulled it out on, so could be something a little bit of extra tech from him, but hasn't really worked out so far, and with losing the first life, this TP will come in to the back line. Jake's going to go in, go back out as quickly as he came in, and Aton's going to try his best with the car wash here, but with the beat, it is too much HP for them to deal with, and they're going to use the artillery strike to try and force them back out of this corner, and Mud Dogs, they are smelling blood in the water.
I mean, Mud Dogs don't even have to push forward. This is optional. This is still Quetzal getting stuck in the side, not even affecting the point. They're so far off the point. We're nearly into final fight here. Essentially, we are now, given how fast the point takes up, and there's just going to be a free Junk Queen Rampage into nothing on the defense. Catches 3, and they're probably all dead.
Yeah, with no sector beat, with no nothing for them to play around with, that is just purple names for days, and with 4 going down, it's all too easy for Mud Dogs, and we're going to be up
honestly,
even a piece.
I don't know why Quetzal even tried to force a fight outside the point. With 5 ults after A, go directly to the point and take the fight to the point instead.
Yep.
And from that moment of them fumbling 3 of the ultimates and losing their lead, they got wiped out on that temple point.
So now we're going to see another one of these tight points to play around with. Another one of these points is very hard to try and play around with, and the TP will come in, but everybody was ready and waiting here from the side of Mud Dogs, and they eviscerate all the members as they go through this TP point. Lumi's going to do his best here to try and chop some more members of Quetzal to pieces, as J-Cat was the first one to go down, and again, another fight for Mud Dogs that they win handedly. They used a photon barrier in that, but that was it.
There's a really good lamp being placed by Netra as well. Out of the LOS of anyone from Quetzal, J-Cap went down super quickly. Used all his cooldowns, didn't see the immortality from Newman, probably got destroyed. Maybe wasn't available, but J-Cap not surviving there is a pretty big deal. And then the rest of Mud Dog can just play that situation slowly. Getting the first fight win in the neutral is always super important here.
They're going to drop the window here as well. They're going to try and do something with the Terror Surge, but J-Cap hasn't been able to do much with it.
He didn't get anything done with it.
Did he do any damage? I thought there was like 3 members
I didn't even
directly
see
on
the
top
thing
of
come
him.
down. It didn't even come down.
I don't know what happened there. But what I do know, Kev, is Mud Dogs are currently spanking Quetzal.
You're fortified during that, so it's not like you can get CC'd. That was strange. I don't know. Well, I mentioned it could have been a Junk Queen merit. Looks like we're going to get delivered that.
Finally, after what feels like it's going to be 3 flashpoints and 2 of them going the way of the Mud Dogs. So it's basically last-ditch effort here for Quetzal to try and win this map.
Surely a touch.
They need to try and get somebody in there now to get this touch going. 99 to 100. No, they will not get anything for it. And this just means that Mud Dogs will say, see you later. They lose a member on the way out.
Netra die to that?
Nanda is in no man's land, it seems. But they are doing enough to at least force them back here, but being chased by the side of Quetzal. They have to be careful not to lose their butts.
I mean, this is a 5v4, so Quetzal are trying to catch up. Mud Dogs are doing the right thing. They're just going to go straight to point. Ignore the fight. Do not take a 4v5.
You don't need to, right? You're the ones that are in the lead. You're going to have to force Quetzal to come to you. They're the ones that need the points right now, and worst case is you're just going to start building up more of this percent. They're going to drop the beat here as well. The Rampage goes through, connects only onto Nanda, so it's not like they got too many members with the Rampage. They're doing a lot of damage with it, and it seems like they can convert onto more of these members. Quetzal finally starting to show some signs of life on the back of J-Cab, juking and jiving through this photon barrier, and he will do enough damage to heal himself back up here against Lumi, and that is a 4-piece to the tank player of Quetzal.
Yeah, I think Lumi thought he was going to get a little bit more out of the Rampage. Sees the Sound Barrier, is timing the Junk Queen ultimate of the Rampage to try and get it on the tail end of the Sound Barrier as the green HP runs out, but only catches Nanda. It's not enough. I think, well, J-Cap's got to be on the other side of the map. I don't even know if J-Cap hit the Rampage, but he stayed alive. Critical HP. Low numbers, Junk Queen gameplay. He cleans up. And neutral finally going back the way of Quetzal after what's felt like a long time of them just losing points.
Nanda just gets completely rushed down. They do have a Dragon Strike. He's going to throw this through the floor, and how much damage does it do? Not really all too much, because they can just get out of dodge once again thanks to that TP. They will trade 1 for 1 so far, but now with the extra trade going the way here of Quetzal, it's much easier for them to take control of this point. Seems like
Comes
we're
the
going to
main.
go all the way with this flashpoint. Nanda feels like on this map, he really just hasn't.
I prefer
Figured
the
out what he wants
Torb.
to play.
Like, if you want to be able to just spam damage in like a Hanzo would, the Torb is doing that a lot more consistently in this meta. Mega's maybe okay in this mirror, but the wall just gets broken by Jake's bash and turret form every time, so I don't know if that's going to be super useful for Nanda.
There was a nice little ice wall there as well to at least be able to find space for Jacob, but he goes down either way, and with the 99%, they're more than happy to lose this fight. They will lose it fast as well to the Mud Dogs. So Quetzal will have a recontest, but they need to make sure they don't lose too many more fights off the back of this either.
Jacob needs this ultimate. That's one good way to come back. There's nothing to counter it from Jay at the moment. My dog need to be able to make a huge comeback on this particular round, 0 to 99. There's always the win condition of the Blizzard as well. If Nanda can get it in time, it could be pretty huge. There's not, I mean, the TP is obviously the huge escape tool, but outside of that, Mud Dog would be stuck. So plenty to play through here for the side of Quetzal. Window versus window as well in this fight.
Yes, we're going to have the window down the main corridor here as well. Nice little ice wall coming in there from Nanda, but he loses his life. Doesn't have the ice block to play around with. And the other starting to run out of a bit of time here are Quetzal. They want to try and run away from the Mud Dogs, but the Mud Dogs will put the foot to the throat, and they just laser beam down two of them. They're looking for more here with the TPs because they know they have control of the point. Nanda gets a snipe on Hypnotic though.
Can they get to the point though? Because Nuba took a while to respawn. And you gotta run for it now. Like, Sector's gotta go. He's gotta get there. This is it. This is the final point.
They have to try and touch. They will go through on the TP. Sector gets clipped on the back line here. So with the 99s going through, the Rampages are traded back. But it looks like JCaps is just a little bit better than what Lumi's was. And that means it converts into more members of Mud Dogs going down than one have for Quetzal. We are starting to look like it is leaning back towards the Mud Dogs. So the Blizzard doing a lot of work here on the point. They need to make sure they're continuing to touch here for both of these two teams. They have not gotten the flip back. Nanda was on a trip into Narnia and they lose the flashpoint, they lose the map, and Mud Dogs will go up 2-1 in their series so far and set their sights on knocking out Quetzal.
I thought we were going to all five there. I mean, in terms of the rounds, because this probably should have been going towards Quetzal, but right towards the end there, Blizzard's good, but Jacob just couldn't win that 1v2 at the end. I mean, you're not expecting them to be able to. It's pretty hard to do, but I was also not really enjoying the Nanda mystery hero swapping as well. That was super weird. You also just lose the window battle to the bash because you see the two windows come down and then Jake just turret forms up and you will never out damage a bash and doubling damage through an animatrix like that. So playing for the early setup in the window was always going to be, in my opinion, a losing setup for the side of Quetzal. They should have played for the Rampage first.
Yeah, and it really does feel like that. I mean, Nanda just really just not being able to find his comfort zone just yet.
Torb was fine.
That's what I thought too. I felt like the Torb was in such a good spot. They lose this fight here when they have multiple ultimates. He switches off the Torb, and that's when the roulette really kind of started for Nanda, and he never was able to stick on one hero for all too long. And at that point, it really did feel like that Quetzal kind of just lost their heads for a little bit. They just need to figure out what works for them when they're not having these flyers fly around the map for them. Like, what is their identity outside of that? And I don't think they found it just yet.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, as we head into push, it just doesn't get easier.
No, it doesn't.
They have to take it to map 5, and maybe on Escort, things can get better for them. Unfortunately, they don't get the Escort map choice, so if they did, they could maybe force, I'd say Dorado is extremely good for an Echo on A. But here, like, yeah, they know the game feels very out of their hands because Escort map choice likely goes something like a Route 66, which makes it near impossible to play another fly, or like extremely difficult in either case. And that's on top of them having to win the push first, which is you're gonna have to get into another Jungle Queen mirror or an Orisa versus Jungle Queen situation. I think if you're Lumi, you bring out the Jungle Queen straight away. Sim, Bastion, TP strats, Jungle Queen has been working a ton for this side of Mud Dogs. So you change nothing here. You keep going down the same path you've been going down because it's been working. And honestly, I can see them taking the series 3-1 by winning Colosseum.
Yeah, they definitely have themselves in prime position right now to be able to take down this whole series. So, Kev, this is a do-or-die map for Quetzal, and I think if they finish 5th, 6th, they're definitely going to be pretty disappointed with that. But at the end of the day, somebody has to be our loser, and if they don't pull it together here, that potentially could be them. So, with the way that this has started panning out here for the Mud Dogs, they have shown us time and time again that they're here to party and they're here to play. and they've got a pretty good way of playing so far. I think a lot of these compositions have really worked out for them. I think Jake has been a bit of a standout for us today.
Yeah, for real. Usually Hypnotic stolen the show when Muddog were playing.
Yes,
so.
because I remember in their first series, Hypnotic had that freakish Genji performance that we saw, and we thought this guy was the real deal, but it seems like Jake has taken that mantle today. Need to figure out what Nand is going to do here. I think that's the biggest thing for me here for Quetzal. Not so much about whether or not he's playing a flyer, it's about whether or not he finds himself onto a comfortable hero that he doesn't change every 2 seconds.
Interestingly, in the neutral, this is far better for Quetzal. I expect him to be able to win the neutral because you can do this as Echo and just play around the sides. No one's going to try and chase after you because they'll die for it. Lumi's going to do absolutely nothing to you in this matchup. In the open, once you start going towards the cap, things might get more difficult.
Yeah. Wait and see what it's going to look like, and unfortunately for Sector, he is the one member here for the side of Quetzal that will constantly be TP'd on. Atol goes into the back line and puts a thorn in the side of Netra, and Jake gets punished for going a little bit too far forward without a TP to fall back onto. Jay was also low there on the Lucio, but with all these members of Muddog being separated, pulled to pieces, and pulled apart, it will slowly but surely be dealt with.
Here it comes. Let's see if Lumi swaps. This is tough for Muddog because you have to really think. How much of your comp and win condition do you want to sacrifice just to counter Nanda? But if you don't counter him, can you mitigate him enough? Does Jake need to swap off Bastion and go to a soldier? Like, you got to do something. You can't do nothing against Nanda because he's got another duplicate straight away off one fight.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy with how quickly he's able to get these duplicates up, and Jake just gets completely eviscerated.
I think swap the Bastion now. I'm not liking it anymore.
Nice little opener there to be able to take down Atol, who was the sole member on top of the payload. And a big Bionate again from Sector to be able to do the damage here to Muddogs. But once again, we've talked about it time and time again, and we will talk about it until the cows come home. Until Nanda is not a part of Overwatch Contenders Australia, you need to deal with him in the skies, and unfortunately he's dropped down to your level as well and gets himself a 2-piece with the Junker Queen looking for the third, gets it done, and Nanda says, I'm not just a DPS player, I can play tanks as well. Gets a free rampage, doesn't connect on anything.
You saw Netra just send himself into the loving hands of Nanda as well. Tried to jump in with the Suzu to save Lumi, but ends up just dying for it, which will just be more snowballing. As I mentioned, Bastion ends up being a liability here, so get rid of the Bastion. Soldier far safer. You can actually do all the Tracer as well, which the Bastion can't. And now you're also facing pressure because Tracer Solar pushing the payload. Oh, D-Med.
They do get it down there onto J-Cap. Can they deal with the Baby Diva? They do. The robot goes a decent ways away towards that little point.
Oh, Sector caught out.
Almost takes somebody with him. At least Atol gets the trade.
I'm considering whether the Symmetra is still useful here or not. But at least the Sim allows Lumi to TP onto Sector.
Just gets eviscerated by Nanda once again. It feels like this game is in a really weird ebb and flow.
This is what you need, because last time we saw, we've seen Muddog just kind of get stun locked into playing Sim Bastion versus Nanda's Echo, and that was on downtown of Busan, and it was nothing was happening, man. You gotta get. I think both heroes need to go. They agree. Now you're seeing the best of both worlds here, where Jake gets play. Soldier does die here, but Hypnotic back on the Genji is a carry factor.
Yeah, Jake also got himself a little stuck there up on the high ground, which was a little bit unfortunate. He did try and jump down to the robot to the rest of his team. The Rampage will go through. Nanda's going to turn in towards Junker Queen herself. Booped off of the map. See you later, says Jay. Atol will lose their life to the Rampage as well. So that could have potentially been a moment for Quetzal to push that all the way to the checkpoint, and they do not get it. They are oh so close to it, and now they're being forced back to spawn.
That was so clean by Jay. That's how you remove Nanda from the play. You just boop him off the map, and because he's in the complete form, he's got nothing to save himself. Numu can't get the res, and that's just a clean kill. Here we go, the fire is going to come through now.
And it's all nano boosted up as well, and Nanda, we've seen what he can do without this nano boost, and even with the pocket, does a lot of damage. Hypnotic, he got hit by 2 rockets. See you later, son. And Quetzal once again are just starting to be dirty with it. They are just hitting shots left, right, and center. Nanda with the 4-piece, just deleting members of Muddog like it's his job.
I think Jake went the Tracer to sort of speed up there a little bit, but with no Soldier here, Nanda is just so free to do whatever he likes. And at this point, Lumi's given up. He's like, if I keep playing the Junker Queen, I'm just going to run into hurdles here.
Hypnotic. or he was oh so low there. He copped a couple of rockets to the face, at least had the deflect up for most part of that, but Nanda's going to try his best to be this annoying member in the sky. They're going to drop a Kitsune Rush down here on the line to see if they can get some damage onto these Quetzal members. They did at least get the cap, if I'm not mistaken. No, it looks like they are just short of that cap.
No, they're 70 plus, so that's, the cap did get confirmed.
Oh, they went just over it, yeah. So they are still winning these fights as well here, Kev. They are starting to get their roll forward. They did lose control of the robot, though, so it's not like Mud Dogs are going to be losing more of this distance, but they are losing this map extremely hard right now. 70-7. It is all in favor of Quetzal.
Nanda's very close to spawn camping at this stage. He's essentially spawn camping right now, so it's not close. It's so one-sided when Nanda gets the free reign on a flyer, and the other team just has no answers. With Jake off the soldier, Nanda is, as I repeat myself, Nanda has got a more free game than ever before.
And he is one of those members that can really just put the pressure in. They went up into the sky, they pulled the blade, they pulled everything at him, and they just do not get anything for it. And now Nanda can turn back around, set his attention on the Hypnotic. He throws a deflect into his face, but he knows not to throw rockets in there. And he's got his own rocket barrage, goes in. They at least get the umbrella up from Lumi, but it's a lot of damage into the mech, and that will be a D-mech for themselves as well. Not too many members are losing their life though here, Kev. It's a lot of damage coming in from Nanda, but at least Hypnotic as well as Jake are doing the damage they can, and with that, they finally dealt with these pesky members in the sky. Not before they've lost over 91 meters.
Yep. And 7 meters, but might as well not exist for my dogs at this stage. So here we go, we're gonna get some real push starting now. The first real push in a while. Well, sorry, they're not pushing, they're just resetting the bot. That's the sad part, they're not actually pushing yet. And you know what? The flies are strong in the mid.
Yep.
And I don't know if my dogs are going to win any of these mids.
We'll have to wait and see. More of these rockets going a little bit astray here from Nanda, but all it takes is a lapse of concentration. They do drop the beat. Netra, looks like they weren't able to connect on any part of that beat, and Sector will have to just swift step themselves away here from the pesky members of the Mud Dogs. And Nanda once again finds some direct rockets and just hits them like they are magnetic, and gets him 3 more kills. This is such a dangerous player to have in the skies and not be dealt with. And Jake's going to try his best here on the Tracer, but it doesn't matter with a direct to the face. Nanda wins another fight single-handedly.
Dude's firing off aim 9s. You know, this guy, these are heat-seeking for real. Guys flying an F-22 versus 3rd or 4th generations at this stage, and nothing competes with them at all. Top Gun Nanda, that's the movie I'm talking about.
I was going to say, what is this nice reference that you're going on, Kev? There surely has to be an end in sight, and that's surely what the Mud Dogs are thinking of as well. Maybe there's an end in sight for them up against this Nanda-Numu combination. It's done so much damage to them so far, and Hypnotic is doing something back to the side of them, but when you don't even look up, it doesn't matter. The rockets come in and they rain down from above, and he's looking for more kills. It's a 3-piece for the Farah, looks to the 4th, doesn't get it though. But again, in the grand scheme of things, Kev, yes, they're dealing with it, but they're just not getting any movement on the robot. They need to move this robot so far, and it doesn't matter for the Mud Dogs.
The only time they can get any movement is when Nanda dies and there's no res. And the amount of time that's happened, you can count on a couple of fingers. So really, that means there's no movement.
And that's reflective in the scoreline, 91-18.
And there's no push. Like, Quetzal doesn't need to do anything. Just slow down the game. 91, you win easily on that.
Lumi, oh, he did it! He got it done. He hit the 2-piece with the bomb, and now with the Dragon Blade, that's enough for them to at least get some of this movement. This is the first signs of life for Mud Dog here on Colosseo. I saw that from Lumi's POV. I was like, is he just throwing this in the background and just trying to be a cheeky little bugger? And he does. He finds both of them that were not paying attention to the bomb. And Quetzal, they lose the first bit of movement. They're losing a little bit of momentum here, but they still do have a pesky little Farah in the sky to try and deal with these members of the Mud Dogs. And Hypnotic has to get a beat to stay alive, and that just means that the Mud Dogs want to try and get something out of this, and they do. They get Nanda down. Now they will continue to keep control of this robot. Hypnotic is being a freak. He's being sticky with it. And more kills go the way of Mud Dogs, and more importantly, Kev, unanswered kills as well.
Big D-Mech, and Jacob's in a weird spot now. He doesn't want to go back to spawn and swap. So he's stuck. This might be a cap. Talk about signs of life for Mud Dog. They found it late in the, like 50 seconds left, final minute. This push either works or they lose right now. Has to be on this push.
And this is where it all starts coming down for them because Quetzal, they don't have any ultimates, Kev. There's at least only a Pulse Bomb for the side of Mud Dog. There will be a Kitsune Rush very, very soon here for Netro. Nanda finds the kill there on Hypnotic. Has been a thorn in their side for the last couple of minutes. Numu, though, tries to get it done. It doesn't matter because his buddy in the sky is there to throw the rockets in. And Nanda with the 3-piece is doing enough for Quetzal to hold on here on a Colosseo. And it looks like our prayers may have been answered, Kev. With a full 5 map are potentially on the menu. There's still a couple of seconds left to go, but with the robot back in no man's land, it is oh so hard for Mud Dogs to finish this one off. They're going to have the team fight of the century. And I'm not even sure they can keep control of the robot. There's a rocket barrage at the ready. There's everything available for Quetzal to get this done. They answer back with their own Kitsune Rush. He's trying to spawn camp. Jake wants to come in for a blink. He wants to try and do something, but it doesn't matter. Jay will not lose their life, and the bomb does enough to get rid of Nanda. So it looks like so far the Quetzal have not locked this one up just yet. They still need a few more pieces to get the bow done, but it seems like so far they're starting to hold on. These traves are starting to become in their favor, especially because they have control of the robot, but for them, if they lose too many members, this will be game over. JCap goes through, gets the rampage, and that looks like it will be it. It took them a bit of time to get it done here, Kev, but off the back of their big bad tank player in JCap, they do. Colosseo goes the way of Quetzal, and we go to 5.
Crimson said 5-mapper inbound.
Yep.
And it has been delivered.
Whoop, whoop.
Now, I was thinking this one was going to be maybe tough for the side of Quetzal because things were going rough. But, you know, you got to believe in the carry from Nanda. And it came through again in unbelievable fashion. Like,
He's so, it's just, it's such a crazy player to have in your team where he can just so dominantly take over a game like that, and everything can be stacked against you, and Nana can just have a free game for 5 minutes and the game's over. It's very dirty that Quetzal has been able to rely on him like this.
Every few minutes, you get a 10-second window where he might be dead, and then after that 10 seconds, another several minutes where you just lose.
And it's very wild that we have a player who is so dominant like this on some very specific heroes to him. And yeah, Mud Dogs, they did a lot. They did a lot.
That was the best, actually. That boot from Jay again was so clean.
Yeah, they did so much to shut him down, but still, there was just moments where he just has free reign. And as you said, like, sometimes it can just be a couple of seconds of reprieve that Mud Dog get to try and get their, their brains back in order, and then the rest of Quetzal are still doing their own bit as well. Like, it's not like Atol and JCap go asleep at the wheel, right, and Sector's just doing nothing. They are still pulling their weight across the map, but it's just how dominant Nanda has been and how strong he's been able to pull his team back into the series.
Yeah, well, I mean, still some difficulty ahead, though, because, as I mentioned, you don't get map choice for Escort.
Nope.
And if you are the side of Mud Dog, first of all, you stay the heck away from Dorado. That's number 100%. I would even go so far. I think Circuit Royale might be the top choice here, but you, depending on how strong your snipers are. Circuit Royale, to me, is strong because you have already shown that you're willing to play double flex support. In fact, you actually played double. Jake on the Widowmaker was fine, and you play some of the double, hit scan. So that's super strong. Sorry to disappoint, but they didn't go Circuit Royale, even though I think that would have been the prime choice.
Nope.
Even though you give JCap his Sigma matchup, doesn't matter. I think you won on the DPS and the support front, which is more important.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to watch point Gibraltar this time around. So we're going to have something very similar to our previous 5th map. I believe this was the last one that they chose as well in their 5-map series against MFC. So seems like this is where they are comfortable, the Mud Dogs, and this is how the series has panned out, and this is where we're going to be ending up, is on the watch point. Luckily enough for us, we will not be going any further than this. No ties this time around. We are going to be seeing who will come out on top. So what? A defense, A attack can still potentially play the fire, right? Like, I guess only as you're going to be, things are going to get a little weird for Quetzal.
It depends if Mud Dog defend, they may be tempted to run instantly the Widowmaker on the defense or something powerful on the long range hit scan, because part of the reason why flies will suck here is like on super long sight lines and can be sniper dominated if you want to go down that pathway. B has some decent height, but allows ground-based heroes to also get that height. You can TP up to the top of the shuttle, or you can just use mobility to get there, and you can have a lot of angles to play through. And generally speaking, just you close the gap on the height advantage that the Flyer would have on B. And C is once again sniper playground where it's super long sightlines.
We'll have to wait and see. I feel like if there's anybody that's going to do it, it's going to be Nanda.
If there is like a ranking of order of like good to bad, Dorado extremely good if you're Nanda, and then everything else is bad, but Circuit is the worst, and then just before that is probably Gibraltar.
Yeah, okay. It seems like they went for a little bit of comfort that still fit into the parameters of what they wanted to play as well. See how this series does end up as well. I mean, I'm going to be sad no matter who goes. Quetzal have had some moments of brilliance. I think all of their players have potential to pop off and do some very special stuff. And I think Mud Dog have just, kind of come into the scene. Like, these guys were fresh faces to us, right? Like,
mostly, yeah.
Mostly. And we're just looking at these guys like, damn, they're very impressive.
Quetzal are a little, like, they're entertaining, but they are also very one-dimensional. And, well, I suppose you could make that argument to other teams like MFC as well. You can call them one-dimensional, but they're one-dimensional way that fits the meta adequately, where, like, but what they're doing is actually super strong in the meta. Now, coming back into this particular game, it's going to be D.Va plus Flyer plus Ashe. Jake's just not going to waste any time. I mean, you go to Gibraltar, strong Widow map. Jake's already shown capability and competency on the Widowmaker.
Yeah, absolutely eviscerates Nomu, which is not what you want to see if you're a Quetzal fan right now. So this just means that it will just be free movement on the payload. And we'll just slowly but surely get this payload rocking and rolling up and around the corner as Quetzal will hold the further back point as they wait for Nomu to get back in. We're going to have a pause. All right.
Nanda's
not quite sure why.
Nanda's already sobbed off, by the way.
Yeah, he's already on
Which
the
just doesn't surprise me. It's like, you're not going to compete at that range. With Widowmaker is super viable on this map. I mean, map 5 was always, I think, this is going to be a challenge for Quetzal. If they are really actually a good team, they're going to need to prove that they can win a map like this without the help of a Flyer.
Yeah. And it's one of those scenarios where this is really going to test to see what, they can do with everything else, right? Like, if they're going to have one of the other players like Atoll or JCap step up, right? Like, you already touched on the fact that can they do this without one of their Flyers, or what are they going to do? Do one of the other players have to try and go on to one more of these extra carry roles? It seems like we are currently in the situation of making a small little remake. So this could be a little bit more of an extended break, trying to get this one done. So we'll have to wait and see what will happen this time around. So we should be able to get back into the game very, very quickly, ladies and gentlemen. So that'll be very nice for us. But either way, we'll see. We'll have to see. As you said, this is the question for Quetzal, is about what do they look like if they don't have their Flyer dominating for them. And from the rest of the series, it seems like that has been Mud Dog favored.
Now we've seen the comps. I don't know if they're going to be forced to play the same comps again or anything like that, but Nanda basically knows what he's up against. He can just choose not to start on the Echo now.
Very true.
That would be my expectation. Sad that we have to reset, because it does actually gives Quetzal a little bit of a bonus here to work with in terms of knowledge.
Yeah, that's very true. Unfortunately, that is the way that the cookie crumbles sometimes. So we'll have to wait and see what's going to happen as we get into this game. Whether or not it's going to be a scenario of, do they give the Nomu kill again? I mean, I don't know. I'm not admin.
Sit there and allow the kill to happen.
Just let him headshot you. Just let him do that. I mean, it was basically instantaneous kill anyways, so what does it really matter? We are just getting back in the game very, very soon, so what are your predictions for this map then, after the opener that we've seen so far coming in from the Mud Dogs? Seems like they've been able to at least win the first chess move themselves.
Yeah, I think that should maintain itself for the map. I think this is just going to be, every time Quetzal has shown any sort of look off of the fire or the Echo, it's been tough. It's been really tough. So Quetzal need to prove that their looks off those Flyers are adequate competition for everybody else, because, I mean, we already know that you can't even, it's a non-starter versus a team like Honeypot. Like, you want to talk about shutting down a Flyer, you watch Adam's POV and he makes it look easy. So you just can't even do that there. Versus other teams, they're not going to be able to shut it down as cleanly. But I mean, you're probably at some stage going to end up being forced to play other compositions, and if it's not up to scratch, then you'll just lose every single map where you can't run a flyer.
Yep.
And your capability to make it deep in the tournament is affected. I think you look at other teams, you know, they have to ask themselves the same question of, like, what do you do versus NAND? And that's just been the history of playing against any team NAND has been on for, like, the past several years.
Yeah, and that's always been the barometer, I think, personally, of teams that are like, you know, top 3, top 4 quality, and teams that are well below that is, have they been able to pass the NAND test? I think is a good way to put it, right? Like, the top tier teams that we've had across a lot of these tournaments have been ones that have been able to shut him down quite consistently and really be able to chokehold his team, whereas some other teams really have had some issues with it. And, you know, the ones that are, you know, quote unquote not looking up and all that kind of stuff, they're the ones where, yes, they were kind of dominated by a player who was left to his own devices, but it also kind of goes to show that there are some underlying issues that are a little bit more prevalent than just trying to deal with one player. And that's why I feel like it is such a good gatekeeping measure of kind of like a top 3, top 4 team and anything below that.
I think if you order, you really want Dog to win here. And the reason for that is because you don't want to have to
deal with it.
You don't want to go up against the whole Nanda Fire thing, because the problem is you don't have an off-tank player. Quetzal, he is going to be really good at running stuff like Ryan into the jungle queens that both, you know, Lumi and Romani and Exodo want to play. But then you go up against a team like Quetzal and it's like, well, what do you do now? Quetzal doesn't play Diva, you're in trouble.
That's the real question.
So, Order really would like Quetzal to get eliminated here, to be honest.
Yeah, they definitely would. And ladies and gentlemen, things are starting to take a little bit more time than what we'd expected. So we're going to go to a quick break and hopefully we can get into game number 5. G'day and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Overwatch Contenders Australia Fall Series is almost at a close for your Thursday evening. We're oh so close to being able to get it done. And we just wanted to take a little break so you guys can get cool, calm, and collected for another 5 mapper of Mud Dogs versus Quetzal. Getting ourselves ready to jump back into the game.
I'm so ready.
Are you super ready?
But the lobby is not.
Like, are you like super ready?
Yeah, I was like many minutes ago when we were starting the map.
It hasn't been that long. Hold your horses, ladies and gentlemen. There's a lot of fine people that are trying to get things sorted out so we can have a fair and
But we are
balanced,
getting
proper
there.
game. Because this
We are
game means a
getting
lot. This game means a lot. Is the biggest thing.
It's
That's why,
elimination.
that's why it has to be perfect.
Yep.
It has to be everything all sorted. So that's why it is taking us some time to get this one done. But with Quetzal and Mud Dogs, this is a good time for them to start talking about a few things. I think for Quetzal specifically is, do we roll out once again with an Echo? Do we test the waters and see if Jake wants to shoot some heads? Or do we just say, all right, Jake, you did it to us once. Now you're going to do it to us again. Are we just going to not roll out on a flyer and do something else? That's the question.
Just play the Genji from the start.
Play the Genji from the start?
Both teams locking in Jungle Queen mirror. That's actually what we saw last time. Mud Dog versus Eagle Fan Club. Yep. On this map was just a pure Jungle Queen mirror the
Yeah,
whole
they
way
just
through.
brawled each other. Very fun.
Seems like Jacob's keen to play the Diva though. Which, unless you're supporting a fly, actually feels weak in the Jungle Queen. So I think if you're Lumi, you just roll the Jungle Queen. And DPS doesn't really matter. If you want to play the Widowmaker, you just play the Widowmaker. But you play it as if you were going into either a Jungle Queen mirror or up against an Orisa. And then just Jake swaps to what he needs to based on what Quetzal are doing.
Yeah, and I think he's been able to show that most of the time it's probably going to be the Bastion. If there isn't a flyer, if there is a flyer, it's either going to be the Widowmaker or the Soldier 76. So, I mean, I think Jake's hero pool really has been put in such a sweet spot to be able to get this one done for Mud Dogs. I think they've come into this map with a little bit more confidence, even though they did lose that previous map almost quite handedly. But they should come into this with a lot of confidence themselves. They're able to pick this map. They put a little bit of pressure on the Miku Fan Club when they were here last time as well. So they're definitely well-versed in Gibraltar. We're in. We're ready. We're flying through. Cruising through the skies. That's all I got.
And we stop.
And we go. Yeah, see? The Observer team likes me more, Kev. That's what that is.
We both called it correctly there. So
Whatever. Sure.
see what the defense are doing. Diva, Echo. All right, we're just playing the same.
Yeah, I think
And now-
if you're a gentleman.
And now Numa gets sniped, and we're back to where we were. And all things are as we left it.
Yes. We'll see if Numu's going to cop the L here. Officially cop the L. Or if we're going to see some shenanigans. I don't know. Like, is this like an agreement? Yeah, it looks like right now they're just not going to take the agreement. So Jake's going to see if there's any shenanigans. Gets a tag, gets a little bit of damage going. Mud Dogs this time around should be able to move the payload nice and easily themselves. Nanda does a good job at getting rid of one of the deployables. And now with this payload rounding the corner, this is where it starts getting a little bit annoying for the attackers. That's to try and deal with the high ground. It wasn't Nomu this time around. It was Sector, but the res will come in.
It was the wrong support, and that means they can get the res.
But it seems like they've put them at least on the back foot. That was a big boatload of damage, and this just means the payload goes underneath the bridge, and this is going to be free push for Hypnotic on the Genji.
Everyone dropped. So they want a challenge for the payload, but going to give them a little bit of high ground for that. Hypnotic should be focusing on payload as much as possible here to shove it through.
Oh, Jake just had J-Cap go directly into his face, but it means Hypnotic can go into the background here, get rid of Atoll, and Nanda, unfortunately, does not have a Mercy to play around with, and this is just Mud Dogs, pardon me, running over the top of Quetzal as they drop down on the low ground.
Payload's getting some really good distance now. Waiting for respawns here. Rest of Quetzal to stay alive for a little while longer. J-Cap can't really be pushed on too far here.
Stuck in a small room.
Should be able to push out. They got numbers.
So this could potentially be a one push coming in here from the Mud Dogs, especially if we see some more of these headshots coming in here from Jake, and it is so hard for these supports to get themselves away.
Numi had a great timing there, didn't realize it, but Jake just wasn't scoped in. Otherwise, I think Numi could have died.
A lot of damage going directly into JCat. Will have the remake though, so this is going to be A-OK for both of these two divas. They throw the bombs into the air. Atol's the one that cops it, and Hypnotic reflects back the stick. He says, see you later with a dash as well, and that will just mean it's another Hypnotic highlight reel that we get to see here from the Mud Dogs. And that is a one push all the way through A.
No.
Barely even any contention coming in from Quetzal.
It's a slow one push, but it's a one attempt nonetheless. And at this stage as well, Nana can't swap off until he plays the ultimate. This is at least slightly more difficult for Jake to snipe through, but early infra sight, you have the vision control, you even have the high ground control, so you're free pushing, you got shuttle, everything's going your way. You just need to make sure that Jake doesn't randomly die to Atol. That was a ton of damage. Atol nearly got that frag.
Yeah, if there was a little bit of extra damage coming in there, that could have been the opener that you would want to see here for Quetzal. But with all the attention on Jake, that just means Hypnotic has a free Dragon Blade in the background, gets the two-piece, looks for the third, D-Max onto JCap, and then will lead the Baby Diva to her own devices, especially with Jake getting the shot there on Ananda.
Still free pushing. And there's a pylon on the front, like a nice headlamp for this payload. Leading the way. I haven't seen any successful fight wins so far. Nothing really from Quetzal. It's been very quiet on that defense, extremely.
It hasn't really been a moment, right, where Quetzal have been able to do something big. The Captive Sun's going to go into the background here, wants to try and connect onto multiple members, get hit onto two of them in the background, aren't able to convert onto the pot, so it doesn't mean that they're able to do that much damage. Nanda will go directly into the Genji, gets the Dragon Blade, slices and dices through Mud Dogs, and finally, at the end of B, they start to wake up.
Well, we get to use some ultimates finally. And the Captive Sun, I think it did actually manage to trigger the explosion, but like you mentioned, there's just no kills coming through at the back of it. Atol swapping to the Sojourn, I think, is pretty damn useful as well as we now move over towards a proper dive composition. Brig is welcomed here as well. Hypnotics definitely can be troublesome, so having something against that is useful. You are going to get outranged. Still hit scan, Jake Widowmaker, double flex support, while supported by Lumi on the Diva, so you are going to get outranged. It does mean that if you're Quetzal, you have to close these gaps in terms of geometry, and actually we have to get a dive going.
Yeah, you kind of just have to try and be in people's faces, and if Jake is able to hit shots like that, then that is perfectly A-OK. Goes through the window into the body of Nanda, and that says see you later, especially when Lumi hits another bomb kill. I feel like he's at almost over the double digits right now for these bomb kills, especially with another freebie there with the melee taking down Nomu, and they were at least able to hold on for a little bit here, will Quetzal, and it will not be a one push, but oh, that is a big three-piece, so they've at least slowed down Mud Dogs, and maybe I spoke a little bit too soon to see B go one way or another, but Lumi is able to clutch up by themselves completely purple, but the supports are finally back into this fight. It's just Sector and Nomu trying to hold on to the board.
Rally?
That is a big rally to just at least force them off the payload, so they will not get pushed through.
Yeah, rally comes through and you just have to back away because you know you're not going to break the rally in time, which allows Quetzal to bring the respawners in. It's not the fact that two supports is difficult to get past, it's the fact that respawners are inbound. Atol trying to carry this one. He got 3 last time. He's overclocking, but can't connect the shots.
Yeah, sometimes you don't get paid for that overtime, and that overclock isn't going to do much, but it's the Dragon Blade that's going to be the big bad scary. And it's not enough because Nanda says no, denies it with the three-piece himself. So what looked like a very free B push has turned into something scary with Nanda going back onto one of his other signatures outside of the Flyers.
Seems like it's more difficult for Jake to find these shots, so you're not really seeing the same level of pressure through from the Widowmakers before. There's a lot more shields in play, or at least the Matrix there. Numa and Sector can play together, and Sector's just not going to peek his head out ever. At least he shouldn't. Times are nearly out here.
It's hard for them to try and get this last remaining push going. Netro goes up into the air with the Captive Sun, gets punished by Nanda. They will lose their 2 supports in the backline, so they need to do big stuff, but it doesn't matter because Nanda gets his Dragon Blade completely shut down. Atol as well as Jacob are doing a lot of work so far here for Quetzal, and they finally had their supports be able to come back into this fight. And they haven't lost control of the payload just yet, and Mud Dogs not being able to put the pedal to the metal means that they cannot complete B just yet.
Yeah, I mean, this is looking very holdable. As we get to the bottom end of B, Mud Dog walked in with 4 minutes 30, a 1 attempt push onto A and nearly finished B in the same amount. Well, this has been enough stall now that Mud Dog are unlikely to finish the map, and that's even if they can count. They've got no ultimates to work through at all.
Yeah, this has to be raw, unadulterated aim Whole lot of skill to try and finish this one out. They've only got a bomb on the side of Quetzal, to be fair. At least they may have some of these support ultimates in these fights. We'll have to see what this is going to look like. Jacob's going to go throw the bomb in the back. Doesn't land onto much. And the payload is where they will set their attentions. Mud Dogs don't want to try and get these backliners as they go through it. Netra is oh so low. They haven't lost any lives just yet. Have the Mud Dogs, especially now with this Kitsune rush. It's hard to fight through. And even in the overtime, it looks like they're able to get it done here, Kev. Atoll needs to clutch up big, and it won't be enough. The overtime wick will tick down, but they will get the cap and they will move forward in Watchpoint Gibraltar.
Just lacks the sound barrier from Numa in that 5 sector. Also didn't get to live long enough for the Kitsune rush. And I think if the sound barrier was able to be deployed, Kitsune rush deployed afterwards with the extra life to keep sector alive. Possible turnaround moment minimum, you force out the blade from Hypnotic, but it'll end up being a little bit more time now to play through from Mud Dog. They've actually built up a decent amount there. It's a good Kitsune rush in the back to allow the team to be able to hold on to the rest of ults to try and just snowball this one through. It's the only shot they have.
All right, they're going to drop their own Kitsune rush here. Will the side of Quetzal. They'll try and push them off these corners. They want to try and hold some of these ultimates for these final couple of moments. There's only about 50 seconds left to go here in the map. It's going to be a struggle for them to get all the way towards the end, but Mud Dog, they can try and sneak as much distance as they would like. The Captive Sun goes up into the air, lands onto not much, so it means they will just be able to walk this one off. Will the side of Quetzal. Atoll's oh so low. Will get the recap going back in. Netra wants to win the fight. Gets it done with the punch.
Huge.
That was a 180 hit into the face of Atoll, and Nanda's the only one that gets something here for Quetzal. And they're going to lose more momentum on this payload, especially with 20 seconds left to go. Maybe we can start to kiss the end of this map.
They might be able to cap. Netra did so much work. That has to come a long way from spawn, so this might be a little bit difficult to reach all 5 members together on the push.
Do they touch?
Blade.
Yeah, it's close. They do at least get it. They have not finished the map just yet. JCap doesn't get there. And with 5 seconds left on the clock,
Wow,
Mud Dogs will finish the map.
That should have been a touch. That's really upsetting, actually. I think that should have minimum gone to OT, but still very difficult. Given the blade was not successful by Hypnotic, I felt that the chance of defensive success for Quetzal was quite high. But I let that one slip. That could be hugely costly in terms of the rest of this map now. As the attacking side still is going to present some major issues. What are we going to lock in here? Lumi first. I think you just go Diva, Widow, right?
That's what I was thinking as well. It feels like it has just
Diva, Ashe is maybe
something that works out for them. Is that much more just to have the disengage if there is like a Genji as well, to just kind of have the coach
the Widow
gun?
is like safer into what Quetzal could bring out. You have to play something to prevent Nanda from taking over the game. And Nanda doesn't have to go for Flyer, but if you don't play at least hit scan, you give him permission to try the Flyer out, and then that could get really weird for you. Of the options, Ashe has far more that she brings to the table, but the Widow like actually allows you to, if you can just hit the shots, the Widow probably has high potential. I don't know. If you want to play the law of averages, the Ashe is probably better on average.
We'll see if it works out this time around here for Mud Dogs. Nanda is dead. Absolutely burnt to pieces. I saw his HP bar go down to about 5 to start off with, and then as soon as that dynamite hit, that was all she wrote. And Jake sat on the law of averages. It's more than enough, and it seems like with these tight choke points, it's hard for them to move forward, especially with these dynamite blow-ups in their faces.
It's interesting that Jacob really wants to play the Sigma here. I think if they play the Jungle Queen, it'd be really strong. Jungle Queen plus TP, and it is hard for Mud Dog to do anything about it. You want to counter comp the Diva double flex, the JQ comp I think is fine for it.
Yeah, you just walk into their face, walk into the back line, and you just start chopping them to pieces. Nomu unfortunately copped some damage there from Hypnotic, and was enough to claim the kill as well. This high ground is completely uncontested here as we start setting our attentions back towards what it was for Quetzal. They gave up so much of this space and they weren't able to get any of these kills early on, and Nanda goes down once again to Jake, who seems to just be sniffing for him this time around. Hits the dynamite onto Sector as well.
Well, the problem is, because you have a Sigma, you've kind of opted into a poke battle, but your poke battle is worse because, you know, it's Bapalari versus Ana Kiriko, and also beyond that, Jake on the Ashe outranges any of your DPSs, so that sucks as well.
Yeah, it just feels like it's so hard for them to try and get away from a lot of these sightlines, and they are just wanting to try and get away from this pesky high ground, but they just can't get around the corner with all their members alive. Nanda loses his life again here on the Genji, and now they just leave Atoll on an island on the Sojourn. We'll be able to slide away, but it's not going to be the same fate for Sector. At least Nomu gets something by taking down Lumi, so there will not be a tank for the Mud Dogs to play around with. Maybe this is finally the start of something good for Sector. Oof. I mean, Quetzal and Sector. Try and get something done here. JCap gets the kill there onto Jake, so they're starting to lose slowly but surely the control of this high ground, especially with the payload being up and underneath this archway. They at least have control of the high ground themselves now to Quetzal.
3 ultimates on both sides, nearly the 4th one coming through on Mud Dog. A little bit of free push. This is all good for Quetzal. They're getting decent ground. Can you fire up the Skeptic Sun without it being eaten?
No.
It's gone.
I was going to say, it's going to be very hard for them to try and get that one done, and JCap throws the bomb into the air, gets rid of Netra, so JCap starting to get the carry boots on. Doing a lot of work so far here on the Div. The Dragonblade gets pulled, goes in towards the Kitsune Rush. Doesn't see too many members, at least finds Sector, but he gets purple himself. And that just means that Nanda as well as Atoll are able to capitalize on that Genji kill. And the Mud Dogs, they're starting to lose control here of their A defense. It's going to be hard for them to try and hold on to this. Lumi's in the backline by himself. They're going to pop the overclock here as well. Get rid of the mech, get rid of more of these members as they come through. Lumi goes down, looks to try and find more, says see you later to Jay. Wants to try and find Jake as well. And in the face of him was Hypnotic. And now Nanda goes into the backlines himself here on the Genji. Wants in front, gets him done with the melee. And a big push from the A side of Quetzal.
It's a lot of late kills as well, which is nice for the staggering. Jake has to start considering other heroes now as well. As we, I mean, I think Ashe has some good mobility for this point, but now that the dive pressure is stronger coming through from the side of Quetzal, Jake might be under a ton of pressure to get work done. What you do, by the way, see, as soon as Mud Dog lost positioning on A, they just start losing everything.
Nanda's gone into a small room with a big blade and chops through the Diva mech, chops through the baby Diva, and they say, see you later to the Mud Dogs. You aggressed on the Sector, and unfortunately for you, that was not the person you wanted to try and fight in that moment in time.
And the cap?
It's going to be hard for them to try and touch. They do have the members with the mobility to get it done, but with a
the
3
meter dies.
push, they should have enough. Yes, they do. They don't get the touch in time, so Mud Dogs now, they are losing members, and they're losing time as well. They're stuck in such an awkward spot. Maybe they can get some of these trades to try and make this not as bad as what it was, but with Nanda staying alive, it is too hard for the Mud Dogs to hold on.
They are really doing well now on this attack because, you know, they have a ton of time going in towards C, given that they didn't have slowdown or B at all. All those late deaths, they enter B, couple of staggered late kills. Took a while for the respawners to get any sort of positioning, and they just had free push the entire way through, had multiple members on payload. Over 3 minutes now. Respect the window, okay? It's the first major reset. My dog will use an ultimate to force Quetzal back. No kills though, sadly.
Yeah, they would have liked to at least capitalize on somebody. So now they have to try and play against the bomb, and this Kitsune Rush doesn't really do much, but it's all about Hypnotic with the Dragonblade. He's going to cop a little nap in the background here after Sector loses his life. The bomb goes in, takes him down, so JCap secures the kill off the back of a nice little sleep. But can the rest of the Mud Dogs hold on to this defense? They do have the members they have available, but they aren't able to stand tall because the respawners are coming in from Quetzal.
Payload's moving. Good distance. I mean, talk about finishing the map for Mud Dog being good, but if you can finish with a ton of time, much better.
Oh, Hypnotic.
Yeah, Hypnotic's been caught here. This is unfortunate.
No, Atoll wanted to try and go in there to try and get rid of this heal pylon, so they're going to see the Suzu is gone. Free time for a pulse bomb into the back line. Nanda goes in with the Dragonblade. That's all he really needs to get done, and hasn't been able to chop too many members apart just yet, but he gets rid of the mech, so that's a big start here for the side of Quetzal. They haven't done this without losing members, though, so it is hard for them to continue to keep this push going, and they've done it off the back of Nanda and Jacob, who are doing such a strong performance on this Watchpoint Gibraltar attack. Jake is doing a lot of work, though. Conversely, here on the tracer is standing up to the side of Mud Dogs. He doesn't want to say see you later over to Contenders Australia just yet. Quetzal haven't really been able to push this payload all the way to the end just yet. They've still got plenty of time if they want to hit that reset button. They've got the nano boost to play around with, and now Nanda wants to try and play on a Mei for this final point.
There's not enough time. I think the Genji was fine. Just play the Genji, receive the nano, and play it. Now there's not really good nano targets. You have the nano J-Cap, which doesn't feel nearly as good. This defense is pulled through off of Jake's double. If it wasn't for that, it could have been lights out already.
Yeah, especially with the amount of kills that Nanda was able to get. We talked about the nano boost here onto the Diva, and he puts his attention onto Jay. Haven't been able to convert onto that kill just yet, but it's Sector as well as Nanda that were able to get the extra kills that they needed. The bomb goes in, does some damage to JCap, not before he throws his own bomb into the air. The payload, everybody needs to set their attention onto it, but Mud Dogs, they need to get some kills first. Maybe the pulse bomb is the start of something special here for Jake. Some few members coming in from Mud Dogs, starting to get these respawns going, but with the extra amount of time that it is for them to get back in, it is so hard for them to try and play around with this, and Mud Dogs are starting to hold strong. They're starting to repel Quetzal, and with 1 minute left to go, this is going to come down to the wire.
They just couldn't kill Lumi's Baby Diva. If they got the Baby Diva, the possibility of capping increases monumentally, but Lumi gets a remake that is so humongous, and it's again Jake playing that situation well, darting in and out of the payload, preventing themselves from C9ing the point. Even on critical HP, Jake had no HP to play through, and he still lived and just played the extremities of the size of the payload. So, oh, that was so close, man. Quetzal not capping there could be disastrous.
Definitely could be, especially with 30 seconds left to go. They've got a Blizzard to try and play through, and Nanda has to go into the ice block. Atoll will just walk away, blink away, doesn't get far enough from Hypnotic. At least maybe with this the anti-nade onto Lumi, it might be enough for them to hold on. Nanda with the right clicks are going to do a lot of damage. It's a Coalescence though that's standing here onto the point. He's getting chopped through by the side of Quetzal, and it seems like Jake's heroics may have just gone unsung for a little bit too long, and we're going to finish with the exact same time.
Wow.
Between both of these two teams. It was 6 seconds on the dot, and it was 5.9 for the side of Mud Dogs. That is not something you see every day.
Yeah, around that time, straight up.
Oh.
Jeez, that's... Talk about a close game.
that is as close as a game as we could possibly have.
Nearly was not... I mean, so many scenarios there. You could have seen Quetzal cap with more time. You could have seen the camp not come through at all, but the kill into Lumi in that last fight was huge. Like, I'm trying to remember how he dies, but...
He got bionated and just got eviscerated.
I mean, you see the huge blade from Hypnotic, which gets a ton of damage done, chases 8, it forces the early shift out of Nana, so he's got no ice block, forced the recall out of Atoll, chases Atoll down perfectly and gets the kill, and nailing a 5v4, but the trade is not worth it. Losing Atoll, but then gaining the kill into Lumi is gigantic for the attack. Especially in OT, or you're about to get into OT. Respawn's gonna get really dire there as well. And the Blizzard finally shows its face around it. Blizzard wasn't even like a final push Blizzard on the payload. It was like, there's some members here that we can just catch on the Blizzard alone. And that converted kills as well.
5, 4,
Yeah, it's just a game of inches between both these two teams, right? An opening pick here, an extra bit of damage there. Who really knows what this series could have looked like if a few things could have gone one way or another.
I will say though that Mud Dog, rather Quetzal, had so much more time going to C, and they should not have only capped with equal amount of time, given like how more dominant the map actually was on the attacking side. They lost so much time with C. They shouldn't have.
He's in trouble here. He's getting dove on, but Atoll doesn't have the abilities left, and that was a lot of members from Mud Dog that just set their attention backwards, and Quetzal did not back up Atoll. That was much more of a solo mission, and with Nanda not there available, they weren't able to get that kill, weren't able to convert onto it just yet, so now it's onto Nanda. Wants to get onto this backline. They want to try and get these members off of the high ground first before they start setting their attention onto the payload here, which has done a lot of movement so far, and he's oh so low on the Genji. And I love the balls coming in from Jay as well. Wants to walk around the corner and get the kill there onto Nanda. Not before Atoll says see you later to Hypnotic here on the attack. And so with this being the overtime, it is very hard to sense any more movement on the payload.
It could be, the DMAC is huge, so...
It is very hard for them to deal with this Diva. This Baby Diva, though, is doing a lot of work. Has gotten about half HP towards that remake, but it doesn't matter. Everybody else is just getting torn to pieces by the Quetzal team. And they at least get one trade with Hypnotic getting that kill. But Nanda will say see you later, and that will be all we will get. 66 meters is where the finish line is.
Unfortunately, Lumi was the one solo pushing, and so you had no tank support to actually take ground. In my opinion, Hypnotic should have been pushing instead, and Lumi should have been with the team to try and force ground with the tank on the front line. You still get good distance on payload because you reach the top of the hill.
Yep.
But, man, I don't think it's... this is hard to call. I don't know if this is enough distance. It doesn't feel like it's enough. And the game is over as soon as Lumi gets demec'd. That's it. Mud Dogs just don't have tanks anymore. What am I? And the other problem here, oh my god, this is actually really bad for Mud Dog. Now they have to play the same comp on the defense simply because Nanda exists. You're not playing the ideal comp. I don't think this is ideal. Jake's gonna have to go large again. Can Jake get the same opening frag on Nanda? He's gonna need to. You have to justify the Ashe. I mean, the real justification for the Ashe is obviously to counter Nanda, but if Nanda just doesn't choose to play a flight, which he won't because he knows the Ashe is there, then Jake better pull up the value on what the long-range hit scan can do. Otherwise, unfortunately, you've put yourself into the we have to play this, which is not ideal, but if we don't, we lose to Nanda.
Yep, and that's why we've been able to see teams with Nanda on it go so deep in a lot of these tournaments, because you get into these scenarios and you just have that innate advantage. The Mud Dogs now, they have shown their hand on the defense. They know exactly what is going on. These opening picks are going to be so advantageous. Hypnotic is on a sliver of HP, has to get the right-click beams coming in from the Alari, and Lumi oh so low on the Diva. Oh, it is so close for Mud Dog, and Nanda says see you later with a reflect to the face. That is a big opening pick here for Quetzal, and I think that might just be enough for them to finish this map off here, Kev.
Jake swap.
It's going to be hard.
You get rid of the Ashe. At this stage, Nanda's not going to swap either because there's no time remaining, so just get on the Tracer. Unless Nanda dies, he's not swapping.
And they just have to get here to touch the payload. Nanda's going to try his best to try and get some of these spawners come in himself. The dash goes a little bit too far. He lives just in time. Now we're looking at the remaining members for both of these two teams. Lumi wins the fight against Jacob. There is no tank for Quetzal. Maybe I counted my chickens a little bit before they hatched. They need to touch this payload. Lumi, he lost his mech. He's in the Baby Diva form, and now we're seeing the Doomfist come back in. The overtime is finally ticked forward. They haven't dealt with the Baby Diva, though. They still have not converted onto Lumi just yet. Nanda gets the kill. JCap comes forward. That looks like Quetzal have done just enough to send the Mud Dogs home. And with no remaining members left, the overtime wick will tick down, and it doesn't matter with the team kill ringing out. Quetzal will win at the final hour. The doomsday clock got to 11:59 there in the Quetzal camp. Things were looking dire, but they just clutch it up in the final moment, and they will move forward. And unfortunately for Mud Dogs, that is 2 5-mappers they lose by the skin of their teeth.
Yeah, this one was way closer because this one goes all the way to the time bank. The one versus the MFC did not get this close. And now you're thinking, could they have just held on C? Because I think A is to the detriment of Mud Dogs. You have, again, the spawn situation with what Nanda can bring to the table if you don't play a hit scan is just too rough.
Yep.
And you see immediately, okay, Jake swaps at the first opportunity, but you've already lost a lot of ground. Lumi dying at the end there, oh man, losing mech, that's tough. If Lumi can just stay alive, Jacob died first.
Yep.
You sort of won that fight already. Lumi just needs to keep mech. If they can just keep that mech up, there's a world where they actually win that defense on A and clutch it up. But yeah, it's tough, man. That was skinning your teeth kind of close.
And that's the thing, as soon as I saw that kill come up in the kill feed, the fact that it hadn't ticked over to overtime just yet meant that JCap was not in the overtime respawn. So it meant that he was able to respawn a lot faster than what we saw Lumi was, because as soon as Lumi died, that was in the overtime because he stayed alive for so long on the Baby Diva. I'd imagine he was extremely close to getting that remake, but it was just a moment of just so close between both of these two teams. It is ridiculous for us to see that Mud Dogs, a team with a lot of relatively new faces to Overwatch Contenders Australia, just came in and were able to do this to the Miku fan club and Quetzal. Yes, to be fair, Quetzal probably a little bit of maybe a step below Miku fan club, but on their day and then being able to deal with the composition that Nanda does throw at them and Quetzal do throw at them, it is a testament to themselves that this was a pretty good team, and I don't think Fifth Six does justice to them, but that's the way a double elimination bracket works. So sometimes you run into some strong teams consistently, and if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. Yeah,
I mean, Quetzal are a legitimate threat. I think they're, again, there's compositionally it's still weird for them, but they're still a threat. And because they have Nanda, they'll force you into weird situations. That's going to be true for everybody else that have to play them. That includes Order. That includes potentially MFC. Only part of the only team that seem to be impervious to what Nanda can bring to the table, and that's because Adam exists. But for everyone else, it's not. You just don't have the same options. So, still though, super entertaining game. I think Order may be a little upset that Mud Dog didn't win that one, as they'll have to be the ones to deal with Nanda next week. But Mud Dog put up a huge fight. I think they really showed up this tournament. Maybe they didn't reach the top 4, and that's a little bit disappointing. But honestly, they won me over because this was like what a massive debut for a new team in Contenders. It's rare that we get like a new team. Okay, not everyone is completely new to Contenders in terms of like playing other regions, whatnot, but they are new for us here in terms of being in Contenders Australia.
Yeah,
and that was a nice little surprise.
Yeah, definitely won over probably a lot of fans in the chat across these last couple of days. But enough about the Mud Dogs. It's time for us to talk to one of our winners here. We got Sector on the line, so let's bring them in and see how they're feeling after that. Sector, mate, that was an intense couple of 5 maps for you guys there to be able to eke out the victory. What's the comms like in those final couple of moments there on Gibraltar when JCap goes down, but you're still able to get the DMAC on the Lumi?
Just incoherent screaming and just kill the D.Va. That's the only thing. Everyone knew that, if we kill the D.Va, we even that fight out and then we can get another pick. So, I think that was a bit of a mistake from them. I mean, they probably could have won that last map. I mean, it could have been anyone's map, to be honest. It was the barn has burnt to the floor. So
it looked close to me, man. But the series, it took a little bit of effort to get there because talk me through the fact that Busan looked fine for you guys. You lost 1 round, but it's whatever, you dominated the other ones. Numbani, you got full held on. Survasa looked really rough as well. Despite you getting the 1 point, that map looked very favored for Mud Dogs. So the 2 maps, Numbani and Survasa, were really tough for you.
Yeah. I think we suffer, you guys are right, that we suffer from a little bit of like comp issues. Like, we'll verse a comp and we'll just be like, what do we do? And then we just, we have to adapt on the fly. So I think that's what we have going for us. We're adaptable, but I think it takes us a little while, as you guys saw, to really get the gears going. I think Survasa was definitely a bit rough though.
We also saw Order with a lot of Quetzal Ryan take down Ground Zero today, and you guys will be going up against them next week. So how do you feel about that particular matchup? And generally, how do you feel about your ability to go the distance this tournament?
Well, I think I hope we do well. I'm thinking that we will do well because we've versed this comp a couple of times now. I mean, bar the Ryan, it's mostly just Queen that we've versed, or Orisa. So, I think we've kind of got a grasp on what we need to do because we do play an unconventional comp. We don't run the mirror, so I think that we should, have a pretty good performance against them. But we can only hope.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it all comes down to who performs when you guys jump into that series. So, Sector, mate, I'll let you calm down from that full 5 mapper and let you guys get prepared for next week as well.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Cheers, mate.
Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I could not imagine what, the comms were like in those final couple of moments. But, it seemed like Sector and the boys understood exactly what they needed to do. They needed to try and get that D.Va down, and they got it done. And the fact that they were just able to squeak that out, I think just goes to show not only how strong Mud Dog were, but, kind of the tenacity of this Quetzal squad as well. Considering that, coming into this, a squad of some members that have been on top teams before, now they've come together, all together once again, and they're really showing that in Overwatch Contenders Australia, anybody can put their minds to it if you've got good enough players.
It really it's a good look as well to be able to win off the flyers because that's what you need. You can't just be in a situation where you dominated Colosseo because my dogs were just confused about how to do anything versus the Fire/Edge Echo. You made it work on Busan. You dominated one of the rounds, and the other one you sort of had a good start on the Echo, which put things in a weird spot for my dogs. But the concerning bits were the 2 maps in the middle, as I mentioned there. It's the Survasa and the Numbani, especially the Numbani, man. That was a rough look. So they need to do a lot of work in those areas. Otherwise, you go up against as you move through this tournament, you're only going to face tougher competition. And I don't think they're going to give you as much rope to play with to buy yourself back into a 5 mapper,
Yeah, especially when you're guaranteed to play the hybrid as well as the flashpoints as well, right? So they have to be something that you're going to be looking towards for Quetzal to move forward. But either way, that is all about next week. Before we get there, it is time for our Macca's play of the game once again. Our Macca's play of the game this time around is a man that has been featured in these quite a lot. But this time around, he's getting featured in it once again. On the Farah, absolute 3-piece, an absolute insane man, hitting to Rex, absolutely everybody.
Hypnotic flight, I don't know if you scored that, but the shot was on Lumi,
and you just
saw Hypnotic dash past, and his body just keep flying. If we play it again at some stage, you'll see it.
All right,
it needs to be in really slow motion.
All right, really slow mo. Okay, I'm going to see it. This is where it goes. That's where Hypnotic is.
Look at Hypnotic.
He dashes through.
Here he comes.
And he just gets collected, and the collateral is what gets rid of Lumi's mech as well. So
That's
that
so
was,
beautiful. I love that.
That was a nice little pickup there, Kevin. I didn't even notice because I just saw this giant Diva mech in front of me, and I'm like, oh yeah, he's just hitting his directs, right?
No,
Like,
because
this
it's
is
like
Nanda.
Hypnotic shows up in the kill for you, like how? So it's like
That's actually probably one of my favorite Macca's player games that we've seen in a long time.
it's definitely one of the more entertaining ones ever.
Yeah, that was a really good one, and props to everyone whoever to pick that one up. Maybe the replay operator was one that picked that out. So.
Yeah.
Props to them, but I mean, again, we've seen situations where Nanda's really been able to pop off on that, and kind of circling back to the point that you made before as well, it is a good showing for Quetzal. They're able to get some of these wins on compositions that aren't just, Fire Mercy and just completely dominating everybody. Nanda has looked really, really good on that Genji, and
Yeah.
I'm surprised that they're not just defaulting back to that as well when they're constantly just forcing people to play these these weird long-range hit scanners.
Way too much mystery heroes by Nana sometimes. That was especially true in Servasa. You just could tell this is weird. This is not a good look for Quetzal at all. I think you can just rely on the game. If you're not playing Echo Fire, default to the Genji and just take it home on the Genji.
All right, Nanda, you heard it from us here on the desk. That's what you should be doing next week. But that is all for next week when we start looking towards a lot more of those lower bracket matches. And that means with the end of the broadcast, it is time for us to start talking about our Macca's MVP. So without further ado, let's bring in our Macca's MVP for our 4th day here. And it's going to be Nanda. So even though he went on the Mystery Heroes, he does have that carry potential. He's got a pretty big backpack.
Where he won unbelievably hard.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's like, Coliseum is the most unbelievable map of just seeing the other team scramble in terms of, like, what on earth do we do? How do we beat this?
And the thing, it's always so funny whenever we watch these series with Nana involved in them. It's because it's like, it's not like it's a secret. It is the worst kept secret on the planet, but he still gets away with it. And this is where, everybody talks about it. You give him an inch and he will take a mile. If you give him the smallest amount of room to play these flights, he will punish you for it. And then he's going to punish you for a couple of minutes until you make one of those switches. And then he's going to switch back to something else. And then you're in this kind of awkward, musical chairs with your composition where Nanda always has the potential of going into a hero that will dominate you throughout the entire map. And he can be one of those players that can 1v5 and look dominant doing it.
Yeah, and that's a threat for every other team. And I think it's especially for a threat for a team like Order that doesn't have the Diva in a pocket. So,
True.
That's... At least they have a week to figure it out, and they're going to need to do some real work. Felix is going to have to come up big. Felix, I thought had an insane game today. Some of the cleanest Bastion. And again, usually, I don't really care about Bastion gameplay, but he made it look good. He actually made it look very impressive. So if Felix has more in the back pocket in terms of the hit scans, that's a play you need to lean into heavily to try and shut Nana down for next week.
Yeah, exactly, and I think that's something they're going to be leaning on next week. But let's go and have a look at the bracket here, Kev, because it has been a long day when it comes to the double elimination bracket that we've had so far today. These first 2 threes have been something special when Mud Dogs have been involved. If you look across them, they were 3-2 against the Miku Fan Club. They went 3-1 against Bruisin' and Cruisin', and now a 3-2 all the way for Quetzal. This is where we start to settle on our top 4. Honeypot, Miku Fan Club, Order, and Quetzal. I think at the start of this tournament, if you told me this was what our top 4, I would have been a little surprised that Ground Zero weren't in there, but the performances they put on the last 2 days, they're probably pretty disappointed, but probably deserved of getting their first 6.
I think if Ground Zero lost like Mud Dogs just did and it was super close and then maybe could have done it, I'd be like, man, that sucks for Ground Zero. But the way they've lost the last 2 series, I think 5th, 6th, unfortunately for them, is the correct place to be, which means, yeah, this top 4. I mean, given roster quality, when you consider that Quetzal is like largely a lot of ex-Mind Freak, it's like, yeah, I can see it. I can see them being in top 4 for sure.
Yeah, and I think, when we look at a lot of these rosters, like, we kind of have a lot of our ideas about how they're going to play and stuff like that. And I think, the only other question would have been, like, what does Mud Dog look like if they go up against a team like Order or Ground Zero? Are they going to be able to punch their ticket in the top 4? We don't really know, and unfortunately for us, we're never going to know, because this is our top 4, and this is how it's going to pan out. We've got a week to try and get ourselves ready for these final 4 teams to try and figure out who is going to be the champion. But at the end of the day, we're going to say goodbye to everybody in chat once again here for another wonderful week of Overwatch Contenders Australia 4 series. We've had everything from 5 series all the way down to 3s and 0s. So as always, thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you guys next week, and as always, stay safe. See you guys for the next one. ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here. Gonna drop the artillery here as they go through this small little choke point. Collects there on Atlas, big old Earth Shatter. Collects onto so many members of Ground Zero. Quats will swing that hat, one support down. It is all too hard for them to try and get this done. A Comfort just goes down, and I think that is what we're going to call the final nail in the coffin here for Ground Zero on Numbani. And Hayes is ticking up at such a rapid rate. That was instantaneous. Yep. And unfortunately for Ground Zero, it seems like they are once again having a case of the yips. We know we'll get dropped, and now with the artillery strike, they can go into the background, at least deals with the immortality field, but Quats goes down early on to Doomed, and that just means it's a good time to be a Ground Zero member because they are cleaning through order, much like they are the janitors right now here on Suravasa. This is the final fight, no matter which way that you will cut it. Jacob tried his best to get on top of that captive son, but it doesn't matter because Atel gets the three-piece with the tactical visor, looks for the fort. Nanda snakes it and says, see you later, we're going to go further. Oh, he was on 12 HP. The commanding shot doesn't really do much, especially when the laser beam comes in, and now with Atel being able to run a little bit rampant, this is a very free fight for Quetzal. Jacob, though, is the one that gets D-Max almost instantaneously, but it's Nanda on the hype train once again. Tears through two members looking for a third, doesn't get it, but it doesn't matter. Netra gets the kill on the Jacob. Netra's gone huge so far for the side of the Mud Dogs. There's a little bit of damage onto the point, but that's all it's really going to be. The Mud Dogs have come back 5 strong, and they are not being moved by the Quetzal members. Jake comes in once again for a highlight reel, and they will full hold. Under is not a part of Overwatch Contenders Australia. You need to deal with him in the skies, and unfortunately he's dropped down to your level as well and gets himself a two-piece with the Jungle Queen looking for the third, gets it done, and Nanda says, I'm not just a DPS player, I can. Overtime is finally ticked forward. They haven't dealt with the Baby Diva though, they still have not converted onto Lumi just yet. Nanda gets the kill, JCat comes forward, that looks like Quetzal have done just enough to send them on.